Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they premiere, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto and thanks button in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patrons, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Jason Hornsby, Christoph Fournier, John Travolta, JMails24, Unimento, M, Iron26, Endless, Goldie McKiernan, Retro Bill, More Books, Cannabear, Fiber Oats, Bogey, Michael Kahn, Rob H, John Kays, Patrick Gunnels, Banter, Will Brax, Mel B Styles, Troy Shuker, Hairy Blade, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, The Real Gabster, Abraham Mohammed, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Texas Mike, David Wayne Foster, and Dank. So another massive thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Now I will hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their dulcet tones while I set up for today's live show.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bev has been over there doing that for a couple of years, right?
No shit. I've been screaming it.
I don't know if your line's messed up, Steve, but we can't hear you talking and your line's flashing and you're a bit muffled before. I don't know if you want to drop and rejoin.
Yeah, the thing with Bev is you go in there, you're thinking you're joining a friendly, and all of a sudden you're being attacked. Like, what's the problem here?
You assumed, Neil. You assumed.
Yeah, because it's such a good argument. How could you not assume that everybody would be jumping on this and excited? You go there and you get, you could do F4 with an angle. And I think Chris Berry came in and
just a glorified protractor. So I'm sure, I'm not an expert in it, but I'm sure, you know, I don't have to be a fucking subject matter expert with, you know, I don't have to have a sextant in my hand right here. I can understand conceptually, right?
And find their way home.
They find their way home on the terrain.
Nah, don't find their way. They can find their way home, but it pinpoints their exact location so they can find their way home.
Measuring angles. Nobody died.
No, it's measuring elevation angles.
Nobody died.
Everyone died on your hypothetical boat because you were busy arguing with the dumb fuck navigator.
Through measuring an angle. No, it's
elevation angle, sunshine. Get it right.
It's only not measuring an angle that causes
not an angle, an elevation angle, to be precise.
People to die.
Nobody drowned on the terrain.
Oh God. the clarifying cuck. Where he's over here somewhere in the blackness.
Let's be clear, I'm not appealing to Bev.
Anthony, you're mixing up something with what Bev is saying.
Yeah.
Bev is not making a claim about the whole Earth. What Bev is talking about is the measurement of, let's just say, an area, the slope of a mountain.
No, Bev's just talking about horizontal.
I thought you were talking about sophists. You don't know what a horizontal is. We've already been over that a number of times. You're a dumb fuck.
And level. Being equal to each other.
That's not your fuck. That's not an argument. Those are axioms. You dumb fuck. My word.
That's
Brian
it.
just tried to say you're talking about slopes of mountains.
They're measuring angles and getting upset that I say you can't do anything with
No, we're measuring elevation angles in celestial navigation.
an angle.
Oh, did he say you could do fuck all with an angle? I'm not gonna show Bobby again.
You can do nothing.
What if you had two angles?
Call.
You can do nothing with an angle. I'm gonna have to bring Bobby back up since you emphasized it. So, Bevtard. See, this is Mathnasium. This is Bobby. This is first grade. See, angles are everywhere. Bevtard. Real life application of angles. You see that right there? Have your slobber nurses read this to you. So carpenters use them, athletes use them, engineers use them, artists use them. Then we have airline pilots, military orienteering specialists, and ship navigation crews. They use, you see this word right here? This is fucking angles. Thanks again for about the 28th time.
What if you had two angles?
Where?
What if you had two angles? Where?
What are you talking about?
Well, you
You're
can't
just
do it
waving
with-
two angles around in your hand.
What
I mean,
what did that dumbass cracker say? Waving two angles around. Do you think like angles are animate objects that you can wave in the air and shit? You can put them on a scale. Are you that dumb fuck? Or are you just playing dumb? I don't think you're playing, by the way.
What? It's ridiculous. I don't.
It damn sure is ridiculous. This whole fucking thing been absolutely ridiculous. And expose your dumbass as a pretender clown moron. Fur.
No, like you have to put few more qualifiers down for you to be able to determine anything.
Here we go again, this fucking guy. Yeah, you can do fuck all with a wheel. Well, you have to put a few more qualifiers down, like axles and shit, right? You're a fucking clown.
If anybody's ever looked at Data, which is the follow-on book to the Elements, it tells you all of the parts that you need to be able to determine the bit that you don't have.
I thought you had a problem with that. Remember, you were indicting trigonometry before about the part that we didn't have, the opposite side, the D side. You remember that? He's contradicting himself. He's a stone cold dumb fuck, man.
The minimum requirements for you to work shit out.
Jeez, oh man.
It's in a book called Data.
Oh god.
And that has a constituent part of
constituent part, right?
If you want to do trigonometry.
Oh my god. He just clobbered himself in the face again with a spade shovel, folks. You can't make this shit up.
Trigonometry requires a right angle triangle.
What? What the fuck? Oh, you dumbass. No, it doesn't. No, it does not. You ever heard of law of sines and cosines? You dumbass. OMG. Thank you very much. Oh, boy. Let's see what we got here. Law of sines. Remember what he said. Trigonometry requires a right angle triangle. Law of sines. From QMath. The law of sines establishes the relationship between the sides and angles of an oblique triangle. That is, non-right triangles. The law of sines and the law of cosines in trigonometry. You're fucking done. It's all over for you. You are a pretender clown, numpty dipshit that, like I said, should be picking up cans along the side of the fucking road. Supervised. It's all over for you. That's it. Turn out the lights. Party's over. They say that all good things must end for crayon munchers. You're fucking done. Oh, you were done from the beginning anyway. This is just icing on the fucking cake. We got to end this quickly.
That's a whole triangle.
All right, I'm fucking done. That's it. There's not too much left, I don't think.
Hey, 10th.
Brilliant.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
How you doing, Tent?
Good, good. People are getting healthy from the flu, so good.
What are we covering today?
Well, I have from last week, the one that another Neil deGrasse Tyson. I can put it up for you. I just thought to give some others a chance to put things up, but I can go get that.
First to come, first serve, right?
I like that. Shot time. I'll be right back.
You're good in Discord? Yes, Nathan, we're really excited.
All good, all good.
Good to know.
Hey,
I've got a
Righteous, you
quick
there?
question if you have a minute.
Yeah, go ahead, Humble.
I've heard the term used that something is conjured in the experiment. I was just wondering if I could get a quick example of what that is and what that, or one of these experiments and what it means. I think it was in the Cavendish experiment.
Yeah, they're claiming that mass attracts mass, and the phenomena is conjured
Yes.
within the experiment when they dangle the balls. That's not mass
Right.
attracting mass.
And-
They're claiming it is, but the point of an experiment is that you're establishing the cause of something you've studied in nature. So you've seen something happen and gone, why does that happen? So as opposed to saying, oh, look at those two balls. They're rolling towards each other inexplicably for no reason. Why does that happen? That isn't what they do. They conjure the phenomena within the apparatus and then ask, why did that happen? After they've got the apparatus. Well, the phenomena is, quote unquote, conjured within the apparatus. So the apparatus comes at the end when you're validating your hypothesis. So it's phenomena, something happening in nature, not in a contraption. If the thing you're studying is happening in a contraption, you've conjured the thing you're studying because it isn't happening in nature.
Doesn't it become man-made then?
Well, yes and no. It depends. If you're creating something that does occur in nature, so if you take the double slit, you could easily look at that with a limited understanding and go, you're conjuring this to happen within the confines of the experiment. In which case I'd turn around and go, you're telling me that diffraction doesn't happen in nature? It does. Well, no. Wave function collapse. Yeah, that's everything always. I typically don't see wave function collapse. But if you then study that as a process, you can say, but in no place in the double slit did somebody detail them stumbling underneath a tree and seeing light diffraction. It's like, no, they didn't. So what? Does that make it invalid? No, it does not. But in the case of things like gravity, there is never a natural phenomenon. It's not like I can just say, okay, yes, I can't directly tie light diffraction under a little slit in a leaf under a tree to the double slit experiment. But that is what they're studying. There it is in nature. I can show it. But you can't show mass attracting mass in nature. It doesn't happen. So they have to conjure it in the apparatus at the start of the process. Not at the end. Not observe natural phenomena, formulate a hypothesis, and then put together an apparatus to test cause and effect reasoning based on that hypothesis, which is a prediction. It's also called a scientific prediction. But you have to validate or invalidate your prediction, and then you create the apparatus to vary and manipulate that which you presume causes the effect you're studying in nature. But you've got to see the effect in nature. And if it isn't existent in nature and only existent in the apparatus, it is conjured. There you go.
But Nathan, didn't that what's
Hold
the
on.
test
It's
in the
Humble that's
density
asked
of
the
Earth?
question.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah, I think I've got some clarification on it. So if you'd like to go ahead, that's fine. Thank you.
No worries. My pleasure.
But in Cavendish, they were doing something with the density of Earth, weren't they? They weren't even like looking at mass attracts mass, right?
Yeah, that's what they're claiming. If you break it down to their hypothesis, which we have got out of a couple of them a few times, it's if mass, then mass attracts mass. That's their hypothesis. So let's define mass. Let's start there. But just lay it out in the hypothesis. It's absurd. If mass, then mass attracts mass. That's their hypothesis.
Yeah, that's retarded.
Right, but it's okay. So they made a language problem where they said, okay, I see things moving towards the ground. Now, irrespective of things moving in all directions, like gases or things that float, right? They say, I see things moving towards the ground. Therefore, mass attracts mass. They skipped a whole bunch of steps. And then you say, how would I measure the density of the Earth? Well, with the balls, they're attempting to measure the density and weight of the balls. Since they already are assuming mass attracts mass, when they put them next to each other, they're going to say, okay, they're going to attract each other a certain amount. And then I'm going to extrapolate from their density based on this speed or rate that I've measured something falling. And I'm then going to say how dense the Earth is. So it's one big circular argument.
Correct.
Anyone claiming that mass attracts mass is also claiming that the two-way speed of light calculation does not exist, because that's the cornerstone of. Now, obviously, we don't buy into all that rubbish, but the ballers do, and the two-way speed of light calculation is the cornerstone of general relativity, and E equals mc squared. So when they try to say, "Oh, the maths work together," no, they don't, because mass attracts mass is an instantaneous action at a distance, whereas in general relativity, nothing can move faster than the two-way speed of light calculation.
Right, but when you break down relativity, what's the cause of motion in relativity? Well, the answer is simple: relative density. Funny how that works.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, like, a lot of what Einstein talked about is all about apparent effect, apparent things apparent, like apparent orbits, stuff like that. So he's not even claiming an orbit is real in some ways, because saying you will experience apparent orbits, things that appear to be in orbit. You know what I mean? Things like that.
Well, no. That's where I kind of agree with him. So, what is an orbit? If you're looking at, I don't know, Saturn, describe the orbit that you observe.
You can't observe an orbit. You can't observe this.
Describe what you do observe. Can you just in one night observation, can you see an orbit?
Well, it moves in different positions.
You have to invoke there's a back to was it Jupiter? You said, Nathan?
I'm asking.
Jupiter has.
In your telescope.
And something goes behind it.
Yeah, it goes behind it. And you observe that in the telescope.
How can you? You can't. How do you observe the behind of something when you're looking at the front of it?
Well, they're not in different positions?
Yeah, but you can't observe the behind of something if you don't know it has a behind. For a start, and you can't observe it if you're looking straight at it. How do you look at the back of a wall when you're looking at the front of it? Like I'm looking at a wall now. How do I look at the other side of that wall if I'm looking at this side? I can't.
Superman, X-ray vision.
But that is not even seeing the other side of the wall. You can't do it. It's nonsense. Like, he was right. I'm not disagreeing with what he said. Like, I agree. Apparent orbits. You could call it orbits if you want. You could say it appears to do this, appears to happen, but we have no idea if it does. He had to beg the question that the Earth was orbiting the sun, and the moon is orbiting the Earth, and the Earth is a globe. I don't really even think he even bought into all that. I think he kind of had to buy into all that for the time he was in. I don't think he believed all that rubbish, but. He did pump out his own brand of rubbish.
Well, even to say even to say apparent orbit, though, you have to reify the celestial sphere model into reality.
Yeah, I suppose you do. Just slightly off topic, Nathan, I put a video in Mass Debaters there earlier. This guy who's a 30-year naval captain, who's an absolute idiot on the ball side, he done a thing on sextants. If you want to play it, or if you want to have something to react to,
I do.
it's there.
I do. But what I'm trying to establish, right, because I don't want to make the statement because my absolutely basic telescope looking at the night sky as a complete amateur doesn't mean that I have seen this occur, or because I haven't seen it occur doesn't mean it doesn't occur. And I want to clarify. So I'm frantically Google searching to see if this is actually the case. So who else here has owned a telescope and actually looked at the stars and what they do throughout the night? Anybody?
I had a cheap one from Walmart, but you do see stars.
Okay, let me establish what I'm trying to establish with you, right? As you look at a planet, in quotes, and its moons, in quotes, can you, over the course of the night, see what is described as one of the moons moving positionally to be occulted by the planet it's claimed to be orbiting? Is that something you can see over the course of one night or not? Now, I don't know the answer because I've got to be honest, whenever I've gone out with my telescope to watch these things, I'm crap at doing it. So it'd take me a while to get it into the bloody into the eyepiece, let alone track it manually, which, you know, you'd lose it, you get it back again. But as for watching it throughout the entire night, I've never done that. Now, I've watched stars from all the way through the night, all the way through to the morning, all the way through to midday in the case of Venus with the naked eye. It's much easier to track that way, even with clouds. But what I'm saying is, in the case of things like retrograde motion, you don't get to see retrograde motion actually happening. It doesn't actually happen. It's an inference you take after you take nightly imagery and say, look where it was compared to where it was last night. Now, with the physical assumption bias, you can extrapolate out an orbital motion in a moon that's going around Saturn, for the sake of argument. But only, and I don't know if this is the case or not, if that actually happens through the course of a single night. Or, like the rest of the stars, which I do know is the case, you would have to take it based on a apparent movement, based on the repositioning the following night, and then the following night, and then the following night. I just don't know if that's not the case, simply because I haven't seen it myself.
Nathan, are you referring to what John said to David Weiss?
I'm referring to whether or not you can see the motion of a moon around a planet in the night sky in a telescope if you track it throughout the night. In other words, in real time, see it moving, quote unquote, behind, or to be more accurate, to be occulted by, if you use a physical assumption bias, a planet that it's claimed to orbit. Is that something you can actually see in real time?
I mean, I've never heard of that happening. Only time I heard somebody say that was the other day when I saw that interview. And I've never, ever heard of anybody saying that you could actually see the rotation. That's just, especially not in one night.
I'd like to get that clarified. I mean, if it's just the same as retrograde motion or any other orbital motion, that you're seeing a cyclical movement across the night sky in the night, but in terms of the relative positions of the stars to each other, they remain the same throughout the night as they move across the night sky. From my understanding and own observation, that isn't to say that, no, if you watch Ganymede, you can watch it actually move behind it as the night progresses. Now, I don't know that isn't the case, or is, simply because I haven't done it. And I can't find anything on a 3-minute Google search.
Well, look, something Eric DeBay said back in 2015, and it hit home with absolutely everyone that heard it, because I remember thinking this before I ever heard it, is that these massive big observatories, this is where most of the information comes from, these big observatories. The average person doesn't get to be at those observatories and gets to see. We don't have an observatory in the county I live here in Ireland that I can just go to and look at the stars at. There's someone like close by. I don't even know where. I don't know where you'd have to travel to see one, or to go to one. The point is that most of these claims are supposedly backed up by these observatories. But Where is all the imagery from these observatories? Where is all we don't see any of this. We'll see CGI from NASA or space.com or whatever. That's all you see. And you have claims from people like people who are astronomers who claim that this happens, but even if they said they saw it at an observatory, then show it to us then. You should be able to video this. No, you don't get anything. You get nothing from these people.
What you got? Is this
So
Adam
that's the
presenting?
problem. Say that again, Nathan.
Who's presenting?
This is my P900 footage of Jupiter and its moons. I'll press play. Obviously, just for reference, that's the moon, and that's Jupiter there. I'm about to zoom in.
Our moon, you mean?
Yeah, our moon.
Yeah, yeah.
And then at the 7 o'clock position relative to it is Jupiter there, that little dot now. And then I should bring in the moons as well.
I can't remember the exact name. We've got Europa, Ganymede, Callisto, and there's one other that I can't remember. But that's the names of the moons, these little tiny dots. Can we see 4? I'm pretty sure there's 4. Someone's going to tell me there's only 3 now.
There's 4 on there, look.
There is 4. Yeah, I thought there was. I only remember the names of them from the Red Dwarf episode when they're talking about going there and partying. So now I can remember their names.
Would it not be just as logical to state that something isn't going behind something as opposed to just going in front of something that's more bright? Remember, like we had that thing with the sun, you were saying the sun appeared to be in front of a tree. Maybe it's just that.
Yeah, and I get that. I get that. What I'm asking is, in real time, will the light just left of the light that we're observing in real time be occulted by it as the night progresses? Maybe you can answer me, Adam. Is that the case?
I wish I could honestly tell you. I never hung about, but I think I had a quick look, and I think the shortest orbit time is 1.8 days. So you'd have to be lucky to catch it. You can see how close mine is, either due to be going, in their description, either behind or in front of this.
Yes, but still, I don't know if I've been clear enough.
No, I haven't seen it.
No.
But then I wasn't specifically looking.
No, I get that. But what I want to know is, has anybody caught an occultation happening in real time? Is that something that occurs? No, I'm not talking about the moon either. So I'm not necessarily saying, have you seen the moon, which is moving at a different rate? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about moons specifically of Saturn or whatever else, quote unquote, planets you want to describe. That's what I'm talking about. Do you see that in real time or not?
Sometimes when the moon changes phase, you can see stars through where they claim the moon is existing. Like you can see stars inside them. Have you ever seen that?
Some people's flags.
Yeah.
Which is the flag that's got the moon, the occulted star behind the moon in the flag? Which country is that? Anybody know?
Is that Turkey? Turkey, is it?
Turkey, yeah. It's a lot of Islamic states.
Yeah, it's an Islamic symbol.
Yeah, I believe it is.
Sorry to be off topic with that, but that was just like, it doesn't seem like the moon's occulting anything because you can see stuff through it. I don't know,
I've never seen it myself, but yes, I from memory have seen imagery of that presented. Again, I can't verify it, so but like I say, it's as I understand it, very well understood that is the case. to the point where people put it on their flag.
Well, to boost
Nathan,
conspiracy, we'll probably have a video on it.
Nathan, I put Brian's video up in Master D, and then the one from Neil deGrasse Tyson that I had is following after that. If you want to do the reaction videos.
Yeah, the one I put up is it's not. We won't be long going through that because I listened to the first few minutes of it, and it's extra levels of stupid, but there's nothing. It's just a guy who's a 30-year. He's 30-year naval experience. I think he's a retired captain for the supposedly retired captain for the Swedish Navy. Is this Sweden? And he's coming out with a video about sextants. Now, this same guy, I asked him some questions about the sextant some while back, and he wouldn't answer them. He wanted to come back with red herrings and ad homs and whatever else. So, do you know what you're getting?
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon, crypto, and thanks button in the info box below the video. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now, we are joined by Refracted Curvature, the Adam Meekin, Brian's Logic, Neil, 10th Man, Arwin, Righteous Force, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Yeah.
Good morning. Good morning.
Hello.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, you
everyone.
enthusiastic lot. Very pleased to hear it. First plug of the day, because I didn't do it yesterday at the end of the live show, although I did give QE opportunities to do so, and he just didn't. And he moaned about me after the fact, so there we go. I'm going to plug QE show, because it was very good, and I did listen to literally all of it this morning once I saw it was already broadcast and published and ready for me to listen back to, so I did. It's called The Treatment. It's in regards to Bev Dry Thinking. Go and check it out. It's on the Quantum Eraser YouTube channel, so Be Here or Be Sphere. At the top of the live stream chat feed, there is a link to that video. But that was covered in the, not really covered, just played in the pre-show. Just the last minutes that I hadn't listened to before the show started, so I couldn't squeeze it all in. And the guys on the panel all got to listen along, and it was good. Yeah, very good job. I'll agree with QE in terms of his assessment right at the beginning, which is to say that personally, I don't necessarily want to be doing those sorts of reactions, and I don't think QE does either. He described it as Bev pulling on Superman's cape, which is a fair enough description. So he got a response out of Superman, that is to say he was pulverized by him. But typically we want to be dealing with things that are a bit more, in line with the heliocentric rhetoric, as opposed to dealing with numpties on our own side. But sometimes needs must, and that's why QE's done it. So if you're going to be critical of QE, attacking the low-hanging brute, then don't. It's just, that's how it is sometimes when you're reacting to things. And I think we're all in agreement. We all do plenty of reacting to things like Bev and Jaren and Bob and other people on our own side as much as we do with the Globe Believers. So It's not reasonable to be critical in that regard, although it was low-hanging fruit that he was attacking. Nonetheless, just as amusing as any other QE treatment, they're very funny, and I was chuckling along the whole time, I've got to be honest. So go and check it out. There's a link in the live stream, live chat. So there you go. Any evidence?
If they pick a fight, they must be dealt with. End of story.
Not necessarily. That's kind of my point. You don't necessarily have to, but, you know, QE chose to. And that's how it is, isn't it? You know, if you want to, then great. You know, if he's got some material out of it and it was good material and he's managed to cover, this is QE, by the way, he's managed to cover the argument points that we cover on a daily basis in a concise way in response to Bev, then I'm all for it. Doesn't matter how low-hanging the fruit is. So, you know, there's no fruit when we're just disseminating the information about celestial navigation, as was done throughout that entire QE stream. So you, from that perspective, you go, it's a useful tool to explain to people, number one, where they're incorrect. Now, it's not like QE's doing it to gloat about Bev being wrong. Most of the time, we don't care, do we? Let's be honest. We'll praise him where he does good work, and we won't really focus on anything else. That's it. If it's useful to us and our ends, we'll focus on where Bev does well and give him credit for it. Brian more than me, but we're both in agreement that there are certain things that Bev does that are good, and we'll encourage those things. However, you know, if he's going to slag us off or make out that an argument it doesn't understand isn't very good, use stupid statements like you can do F all with an angle. You know, you're going to get someone like QE coming along and go, here you go, here's 5th grade descriptions of what you can do with an angle. And in the first paragraph, it says practical real world uses for angles. It's like, yeah, the guy's thick. You don't necessarily have to address every thicko out there. And yeah, again, as much as I gave him praise yesterday, Divergent Droid sent me a few other clips, which I did comment on. You know, typically I wouldn't have watched them at all. But, you know, from no name, no subscriber people that are saying, look, this is how Earth isn't flat. And I won't respond to those necessarily because it's just not worth the time. You know, it's not as interesting as covering Neil deGrasse Tyson, as much as, you know, I'm all for covering Neil deGrasse Tyson because I say he's a good wizard. But, you know, anybody else, you know, that's what I'm looking for people to comment. Not, oh, this is some guy I came across that's got 2 subscribers and has said the Earth isn't flat. That's not what I really want to be covering, and I'm sure you guys on the panel are the same. We want to be covering Cox or Becky or Tyson, you know, people like that. Michio Kaku, that's who we want to cover. The people who actually disseminate the mainstream globe rhetoric to the masses. You know, not the people stuck in our little pond, which is what
you want
Bev
the
is.
heavyweights.
Exactly. We can address the heavyweights, so let's address them.
Just before you move on, I just want to say something concerning Bev. Bev doesn't have to learn about celestial navigation. There's no law that says he has to do that. It doesn't matter to anyone whether he does or doesn't. Bev does very well with geometry and surveying and holding the ball as the task on that. But what Bev does is he attacks arguments and inadvertently alludes to attacking people based on, and subjects based on his lack of knowledge of them. He doesn't understand celestial navigation because he made a point of not wanting to learn it. And the people around him know less about it than he does because they just follow his lead because they see him as a good leader. So consequently, they have trust in him. They have trust in him, so they never learned about it. And they don't understand it. So they laugh at it the same as he does. But I don't understand. If you don't understand a topic, you haven't learned about it, how can you attack it? This is where he's going wrong. If he just sticks to doing what he's doing and doesn't go attacking other people, other things other people are talking about, not other people's things, but other things other people are talking about or making arguments about, when you don't understand those things, then this kind of stuff won't be happening. I mean, Bev does a great job when it comes to geometry and surveying and holding them to task on that. But then he says things like you could do F4 with an angle and then talks about a theodolite. Theodolites measure angles, just an angle, not special angles, no, not more special than some other angle. If you're going to measure an angle, you're not going to measure it for no reason, and you're going to use a tool, the least you'll use is a protractor to measure that angle. You know what I mean? Like, the reason this stuff is happening is because Bev doesn't do his homework and his due diligence on learning about things like celestial navigation and scientific method, from what I heard on one or two of his streams. And he doesn't attack scientific method so much, but he doesn't know what it is. I know because he added mathematics in. You know what I mean? It's like, if you don't know what something is, then don't talk about it. You don't have to learn about it. You don't have to know about it. No one is asking you to be an expert on it. You don't have to learn about celestial navigation. Do whatever you want, but don't be putting it down and making us out to be stupid because we use that as an argument when you don't even understand it. I mean, nobody here is arguing with horizontal and level being the same thing. We'd make that argument too. We have no problem with that. That's Bev's main argument.
Speaking of which, is there any evidence that level isn't horizontal?
Is not horizontal? No. I have no evidence of that.
It is an axiom you build upon, you know, that level is horizontal.
Yeah.
But any evidence?
I have no evidence.
In regards to the argument, this is specifically. So any evidence that you can acquire an elevation angle measurement from a curved Earth?
No, you can't.
So there we go. That's the end.
Question?
That's it. That's the two housekeeping questions that sums up everything discussed about Bev. We discuss elevation angle measurements and understand the principles of level and horizontal. That's it. Don't have to, as has just been detailed by Brian, you don't have to understand any of these arguments. Nobody's twisting your arm. But if you don't understand them, don't challenge them. That's it. Because you'll end up looking stupid and saying things like you can do fuck all with an angle. And literally QE will bring up a 5-year-old's example of what you can do with angles. It's just sad. But that's what you get if you don't learn the argument. And then you see someone else disseminating it. And go, oh, I don't like that. They should be talking about what we're talking about. Self-indulgent nonsense like that. You'll just get embarrassed by QE. Which is what's happened. You know, Bev's been taken quite literally to pieces by QE. And he shouldn't have to do that. And he wouldn't need to do that if we weren't being attacked by Bev for his stupidity when it comes to celestial navigation, which he doesn't understand. And as for you saying he understands geometry, he doesn't. That was demonstrated by QE on his stream yesterday. And highlighted with them all going, what? What's Nathan talking about? He's talking about the concession that Ruhif got out of Bev, that measuring Earth has nothing to do with Earth. Yeah, that's nonsense. That's what we get from Bev when talking about geometry, Earth measurement. Oh, no, I'm not going to relate that to the Earth, says Bev. It's just that's what we're dealing with. Numpties, they don't know this argument. So it's okay, lads. You don't need to. You're not twisting your arm. But don't be so brazen as to tell people that we don't know what we're talking about. Outrageous. We do. And when we say know what we're talking about celestial navigation, acquisition of elevation angle measurements in relation to the baseline that you'll be navigating. Yeah, that's what you'll be doing. Establishing your position so you can find out where the hell you are and move forward in the right direction. That's what it's for. Yeah, that's utilizing the world that we're actually on with maps and star charts, aka the almanac. That's what it's used for. So this isn't our argument. This is a fact. There is celestial navigation. It is utilized to find your way home if you're lost. You know, that's how it is. This isn't our argument. It's a matter of fact. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
No evidence of the distance to the sun. I've never seen any evidence of that.
Aren't the almanacs being used to establish, like, heights on the right-angled triangle? Isn't that what it's for? No. Again, Bev's misapprehensions about what is being done. Nobody's trying to establish the height.
What is this almanac you speak of? Do you mean our magic book?
That's right. Bev thinks the almanac's a magic book.
Yeah, I told Bev in a comment that you can download it as a PDF, so it's not magic.
It's just a detailed description of where the stars are going to be at a given time. That's what it actually is. Demonstrating our exemplary knowledge of the patterns of the stars, which we have known forever. Just going back as far as you like. That's what astronomy is. No, not astronomy. Astrology is the study of the logic of the stars. That's what it actually does. Figures out where the hell they're going to be based on the pattern that they go through. So if you know the pattern, you can take a particular navigation star, and if you know your time and you know your angle to it, you can figure out what it's above, or more specifically, where it's above. Now, with a circle around the GP of that star, you can have other navigation stars to triangulate your position, to figure out where the hell you are if you're lost. If you know where you are when you're lost, and you know where you're going because you've got a map, you can go in the right direction. If you don't do that, what are you going to do? Travel around in circles till you hopefully see land and die? Now, hypothetically, Bev doesn't understand what hypothetical is either. Yeah? You, Bev, wouldn't survive anybody in that situation. Nobody would live, hypothetically speaking, with you in charge. As detailed on a show that Bev never published, where I go and hand him his own ass based on his ignorance of celestial navigation, and him saying you can do nothing with an angle, enter QE with his, here's how 5-year-olds get taught about the practical applications of angles, Dumbo. Again, like I keep saying, we don't need to do this. And there's people in QE's comments going, why is there a constant internal civil war amongst flat earthers? Well, in some cases, some people think it's because they're shills. In some cases, it's because they're just bloody ignorant. And this is one of those cases. We have ignorant people who want to affirm their own importance in this community and elevate themselves above anybody else who's got a different argument to them by pulling them down, crabs in a bucket style. That's what's happening.
Nathan,
Well,
just
can
a
I,
point. Just
go
a
on,
point
Nathan,
on the yeah, thanks, Ryan. Just a point on the stars. We're told that on the Glober side, Eratosthenes, and how he knew the sun would be directly over a well at a certain time each year. Okay, keep that in the back of your mind. Brian and Adam, I'm going to call you in on this one. Aren't there ancient buildings built upon that same premise where they have a small hole or opening, and each year, without failure, the sun peeps through that hole because they know where it's going to be, like all the stars are going to be at any given time?
Yeah,
And you have one.
New range.
Yeah, you sure.
Well, you use the proper Gaelic, you heathen.
Yeah, well, everyone knows it as Newgrange. So, what I'm saying, if you search Newgrange, you'll find it. Newgrange, and also in Brittany and France, there's another identical one where they both work off of the December solstice, the what we call the winter solstice, where on the 21st and I think the 22nd of December, the sun shines directly into the cavern and lights up all the internals of the cavern, of the tomb, or not tomb, of the cavern. I'm not sure what best way to describe it. But there was also the same existed in Egypt, supposedly, but they moved them because they wanted to flood a valley. My cousin was was learning about archaeology, and they moved. There was similar in Egypt where they moved them. I think it was for the equinox or something, and they moved these temples because they wanted to flood a valley. And when they moved them, they could never get them. Maybe it was that. Adam, I don't know all the details. But my cousin was telling me once they moved them, they could never, ever get them right after that. They had to be exactly where they were. So, I mean, this is just,
well,
what people have done.
Would that be, with Adam to follow, would that be magical buildings then?
Well, that line up for these things that aren't predictable, yeah. You can just use the pyramids, Brian, with Orion's belt.
That's true.
Right, should we do a bit of Tyson
Stone
Star
Age.
No, you're in the middle of talking about this.
Well, my point to finish up is that the Ephemeris, which is the book that all the stars and their locations are, is what the Nautical Almanac uses.
Well,
and then they don't change. They change, but they come back right to it because it runs a circuit. And that's why they're able to put together where the stars are thousands of years in the future as well as the past. So you're using the stars and the angles to them to place yourself with the GP of the star and the GP of the navigator. And you need the right angle for that. And it's the minute you say that, it's over. The minute you say angle, it's over for a globe.
Well, just before the very last point, hopefully, on this topic for today with Bev. When I went over to, I tried to talk to Bev twice about celestial navigation. I still want to know. I offered to go over eventually because he kept getting everything wrong. I hear him talking, he was getting everything wrong, and so were the people on his panel when they're speaking live. So I said I'd go over and I'd do a basic presentation on the elevation angle and how it's acquired and blah, blah, blah. And there's just the basics of the start and a circle of equal altitude. He said, okay, I came in, did the whole presentation, and a guy there called Saragaki, who was supposed to be some kind of geometry whiz, supposedly. I don't know, they seem to hold him in high regard anyway. After I went through the whole presentation, he confirmed to me that he had watched it, listened to it, and paid attention to the whole lot. And then he said, if you change the length of the hypotenuse, I had an elevation angle on screen on GeoGebra or something. And he said, if you change the length of the hypotenuse, right, which means keeping the same angle but making the length of the line shorter, then that will change the length of the adjacent. And I said, right. And I pulled the adjacent back for him. He said, and that means none of it works. So it's geometrically impossible. What he was basically stating, right, is that celestial navigation doesn't exist or some nonsense. It's
that's what I got.
He told me.
That's what I got from that statement, from that summary.
Yeah.
He's saying, no, you can't do celestial navigation. It's not real.
Yeah, because the worst thing is he told, and I didn't correct him on this at the time. I didn't correct him, right? Because at that point, I was an hour and a half in, and nobody seemed to really, only one or two people there seemed to have some interest. Most people there didn't really interact. They weren't really that interested. Bev interacted a bit. And he told me he had paid attention to what I was after showing. He said he paid attention, he watched it intensely, saw the whole lot, the whole presentation. Now, it was very basic, right? And then he said, if you change, 1 second. He said, if you change the length of the hypotenuse, the length of the hypotenuse is determined by the length of the adjacent. So you can't change the length of the hypotenuse because it's that length because you have already measured your horizontal adjacent. That's what gives it the length. And that's why I didn't bother. That's why, 1 second. That's why I didn't bother correcting him, because what's the point? If that's what you're dealing with, what's the point? He said he watched it, couldn't have been any simpler. And then you get to that point and he thinks that he has debunked the existence of celestial navigation because he didn't understand it. And this man, when they played some of our audio on Bev's on Friday, this man called me a liar and said that I had been debunked on Bev's when I did my presentation, all because he didn't pay any attention.
Wow.
That's what you're dealing with.
May I ask you, do you think his point was that if you don't sight the star you're sighting and you sight somewhere else, you change the hypotenuse? Is that what he was implying?
No, I don't know what he was implying. It was just wrong, whatever. He couldn't geometrically understand it.
It's none of that. It's none of that. But remember how, we were talking about pure geometry and blah, 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 blah. Well, I mean, AKA just math, AKA just drawing things on paper. The thing that flat earthers and globe earthers are for whatever reason don't understand is that when they tailor their arguments, it only exists in the vacuum of proving a reification fallacy. Because why the fuck? Sorry, it's the morning show. Why on earth would you need to know the height of a star in celestial navigation? Well, they have to say, well, this doesn't work for trying to apply it to the entire world as a proof of a flat Earth. But I mean, if they understood that you couldn't get the angle without it being a flat plane, then I don't know what to do for them. But I think it's just built out of necessity to argue.
Well,
doesn't really have any practical use.
There's nothing you can do for them because they don't want to get it from what Brian said. Now, when I got there and tried to explain this stuff to Bev, he didn't want to understand it. He wanted to argue with me. And he's not arguing with me at that point. He's arguing with what celestial navigation is.
All right. Well, I said 2 parts, so just erase the first part and just keep the part that I said they just want to argue.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, my assessment is that they've got an elevated sense of self-importance, and that elevated sense of self-importance has led them, like crabs in a bucket, to drag the people around them that seem to be, I don't know, in their perception, doing well or getting to a more broad audience. I don't know, but for some reason they want to drag those people down. It's like, fine, you know, if we're doing something wrong, I would hope we'd all agree that we are really open to criticism here. If we're wrong, come and tell us. Yeah? But if we're not wrong, don't try and criticise us based on your total ignorance of a subject. In this case, celestial navigation, because it's not going to end well.
Yeah, Bev recently in the past 2 days... Sorry, Adam. I just very quickly... Bev, in the past 2 days, wrote a comment to me saying that I was arguing not with him, but with basic geometry. Now, I asked him to clarify it, and he never did. Sorry, Adam, go on.
I was going to say it's a repetition of the same thing that happened with the Black Swan. Black Swan was out, and we had all of these issues. It don't make sense. They're rubbish. And then I ended up confronting him on it with that very specific purpose. I think I'm not afraid to be wrong, and you're out there as a flat earther saying this is nonsense. It's wrong. It doesn't stand up. I can disprove it. And after trying to get that point across, we spent 3 hours where, first of all, fundamentally, Bev goes on to demonstrate he's not even listened to you, doesn't understand the argument, and then you get, well, what did I have? The Earth's not flat because you've got hills and mountains, is what it descends into. As you say, Nathan, goes to just start an argument with you on anything, as opposed to pressing the point where you're there. I say mine descended to definitions of topography.
Well, there we go.
I call it. It has a name. It's called argument ad retardum.
I remember when SC Montreal came on our show after the initial brouhaha about this, and we had a nice talk with them, and we brought up that statement about you can do F with an angle, and we said that there are other parts to celestial navigation, the location of the stars, the time of day, how they use degrees and minutes, seconds, and so forth. There's a whole part about it. It isn't just you take an angle and then, okay, I know where I'm at just because I took an angle. No, you got to know what you're using to establish that angle. And one is the baseline, and one is the altitude of the star above the horizon. That's why the sextant has a horizon mirror. So we went through that with SC Montreal that one time. And he says, man, you guys should come on the show and go through this. I mean, so he got more from us in that one visit than just an angle. So I don't understand why you isolate an angle, because if someone said to me, well, with one angle, can you do anything? And I said, well, no, not without the other parts, because I need to know the star I'm looking at, and I need to know where it's supposed to be over this Earth at the time I'm looking at it. Okay, so I could answer that way. And I could say, you can't do anything with just the angle. Okay, if that's a standalone statement, then yeah, we agree. You can't just do anything with an angle. But if you know what you're using it for, now that's the part that Brian is saying, that the laziness comes in, where they don't say the other part. You need it all. I don't understand why you separate them at all when we've never produced or introduced just an angle by itself.
Yeah, but there's a couple of problems. Number one, as you said, it's a complete misrepresentation. We never claimed to just take an angle, make an angle for no reason. Number one. Number two, nobody goes and measures an angle without using something, even their hand at least, to measure degrees of something. nobody measures an angle without having some use of a tool. Do you know what I mean? Something to measure, even a protractor to measure that angle. And if you're doing it, you have a reason for doing it. Nobody's going off out to beaches to measure an angle to something for absolutely no reason whatsoever. Nobody, literally, I could say nobody does that. So
No,
I don't
you're
know
right.
where. Yeah, nobody's doing these things.
In
No,
fact,
if something.
No, go on.
Go
I'll
on.
finish after you're done. No,
Well,
okay,
what I
okay.
was
So
supposed. You go on, I go
ahead.
then, Kent, because
Okay. The Portuguese, when they were setting sail, just before they would set sail, they would wait until they can see Polaris at night, and they would take from wherever on the ship they were going to do it at sea. Once they were gone from port, they would hang a string and do knots, and they would hold it up to Polaris and have these knots of string be different degrees from each other. So then when they wanted to return back, they can just find Polaris in the middle of the ocean, do the same thing, and say, okay, we're on the right latitude. So you can take your fist or your fingers, as Brian says, and you can approximate an angle. And so they were using these archaic tools before the sextant was really refined, okay? And so, like I said, even Bev at one time said to me, well, you do know that the angle from Polaris gives you your latitude. So Bev knows that the angle from Polaris gives you your latitude. I mean, my goodness, if you know Polaris and you got your rope with knots or your hand that can approximate the angles, you don't even need a sextant because you're doing it. He knows.
Well, I mean, another thing, well, he should know. You would expect the guy would know, but who knows at this stage? I don't know. I can't define his thoughts, but another thing I want to point out.
No,
that he
can we
jumps
not?
on.
We've done half an hour on Bev. Can we move on?
Well, actually, we've done half an hour.
I'd say this in the after show then. I'd say this in the after show then, what I was going to say.
Well, go on, you can wrap. No, you say it now, but let's we've got to draw the line somewhere. And I want to get on to
Okay,
Star
I'll be
Talk.
quick about it. I'll be quick.
Go on.
We're attacked for saying that we're flat earthers or the earth is flat. There is no such thing as a flat. Now, listen to what I'm saying. A flat, not a flat triangle or a flat square or a flat rectangle. A flat in geometry. Flat is part of a description of a two-dimensional shape. So a triangle can be described as flat triangle, two-dimensional, whatever. So when you claim the earth is flat, you're not claiming any geometric shape. You don't actually have a geometric claim. Your point, when you claim the earth is flat, it's the same as claiming it is of no shape, because it's claimed to be a sphere, which is in geometry a solid shape. That's what it's called, a solid shape, three-dimensional solid shape. So if I said the earth is flat, my claim is that it has there is no shape to it. You can't. We don't know any shape of it. It's certainly not a sphere. So I'm not making a geometric claim. So when people come and attack people for saying that with some kind of geometry, it's a complete mismatch. Why are you using geometry to attack something that is a description? That's what flat is. It's a description. You can't use geometry to debunk the existence of a description. It's stupid.
The description at sea. I'll finish up my part. The description at sea level is 0.
Yeah, the height of the topology is in reference to that 0, which is in an aspect. That's what Brian's describing. It's not a shape, it's an aspect. And the topology is reference to that flat aspect at 0. That's sea level. It's all with reference to flat. Yeah, you've got height above and below sea level. Yeah, we've got topology. But what's the overall reference? Is it a sphere shape? No. Two-dimensional plane. That's what it's referenced to. The three-dimensional aspects of our world are referenced to a plane. Not a shape. That's Brian's point. Okay. Just so we don't have any more. Is anybody else got anything to add on Bev? Because I really, really want to move on.
Virtually.
No,
not directly at Bev, because I'm not interested in that. But Refracted just piped up with. What fallacies did you shout, John, in terms of what's going off? Because we discussed this a bit the other day, what was going off.
Yeah, I think I named it argument ad retardum.
So I'd had one in my head, and it was reductio ad absurdum. I want to go just off topic a little bit because it's one of the few times I've found a flat Earth supporting reference in Wiki. If you look here, look, there's examples. So just to clarify first, it's the reductio absurdum is the form of argument that attempts to establish a claim by showing that the opposite scenario would lead to absurdity or contradiction. And then here's the example, which I thought was quite nice. The absurd conclusion of argument can take a range of forms. An example: the Earth cannot be flat, otherwise, since Earth assumed to be finite in extent, we would find people falling off the edge. The first example argues that the denial of the premise would result in a ridiculous conclusion against the evidence of our senses. Creeping in Wiki, I just thought I'd change the topic.
If Adam is finished, are you finished?
Yeah, I'm done. Just random side.
Just so you know, I tried out the question of, is there any evidence that a great circle root is a circle? And Wolfie and them are coming back with nothing.
Oh, keep us posted in that regard. That's a good segue.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It's a segue to reaction to this video as opposed to back onto someone else that's just less important. Okay, are we all happy to move on? There's 108 people watching right now, right? And typically when we get to the hour mark, we're about 3 minutes into the video and it's 18 minutes long. So I'm going to do this now rather than like 5 minutes before. Please share the show. I'm going to put an arbitrary number on it. If we can get to 120 people watching, we'll extend the live show and continue through whatever the nonsense Neil deGrasse Tyson's talking about. What's he talking about? Neil deGrasse Tyson explains the Earth's rotation. Oh, this should be good. Okay. So please share the show. So please share the show. We will hopefully, if we get 120 people watching, extend this live show out a bit longer for the live participants, so long as there's 120 of them. If not, we'll just round out like we have every other time I've tried to do this. But typically I try to do this 10 minutes before the end, which isn't normally that successful. Anyway, please share the show. We're going to get on with this now. So this is Neil deGrasse Tyson explains the Earth's rotation on his channel, which is Star Talk. And yeah, hopefully we'll get some reactions from some of the panel as well. We'll crack on.
Chuck, we're back.
All right.
I couldn't stay away.
Well, yes.
I got some more explaining to do.
You got some explaining to do, Neil. Oh my God, I said.
Okay. Just so I don't get copyright strict. That's why I'm interrupting.
Sound like my mother-in-law. That's crazy.
Or Ricky Ricardo, one or the other.
Well, my mother-in-law is Ricky Ricardo.
So I thought that was Jose JG for a second, but
more things to say about the rotation of the Earth.
Really?
Yeah.
Well,
you're going to need an R value for that. Let's hope we start there.
We did something about what would happen if it stopped.
We did something.
Whoa. We're going to automatically assume that we are rotating. So textbook begging the question fallacy biasist. So his brother on the right-hand side of this screen has just said, what happens if it stops? So we're automatically assuming that we're rotating then. Textbook begging the question fallacy.
Tell me about how many people Superman would kill if he
flew backwards.
Superman's about as real as the rotation.
And stop the Earth.
If he flew backwards.
What? So if you're going to compare your proofsy of Earth spinning to literally Superman flying in the opposite direction to stop Earth turning in a movie? You haven't proved it turns. This movie reference isn't proof Earth turns. Is this a joke? Anybody else got any comment on this?
Well, to be fair, we've done it, but I think ours was not to prove it as support, but to cite how much of a joke it is. But if he's actually going to evidence, is it Superman 2 or 1?
I referenced Superman in regards to a description of what's called the suspension of disbelief and a level that you could class as subliminal in regards to the suspension of disbelief. So when you move into the theatre and you start watching the movie, we're talking about Superman. It doesn't matter if it's Superman 1 or 2. The one where he goes up to the heavens, looks back at the ball, flies back around it to rotate it in the opposite direction, according to the plot of Superman, to reverse time, to stop a dam breaking so he can save Lois Lane. Right? That's what we're talking about. He flies up past the horizon into a sky vacuum and looks back at a ball Earth from space. That's what Neil deGrasse Tyson's using as an example. Well, when I use it, it's because you suspend disbelief when you know that Superman isn't real. You know men can't fly. And you know the Earth is not a sphere. And the sky is not a vacuum. No. You don't accept those suspensions of disbelief. But when you're seeing Earth as a sphere from a place you will never visit that doesn't exist, known as a sky vacuum called outer space, you do, without realizing, suspend disbelief. Yeah? It's ludicrous to think that you could be in a position looking back at a ball Earth from space in a vacuum. So you have to suspend disbelief about it. You just don't realize it. You think you're just suspending disbelief about Superman being real, which is a state that you have to be in to absorb a movie or absorb a play or read a book that's fictional, story-based. You have to suspend disbelief. Just how far do you go? Go on.
I was just gonna say, can I give him props on how he threw in a very well placed okey doke? How they started it off as talking about the eventuality of it stopping. So we talked about what would happen if it stopped. Yeah, that's obviously a begging question, fallacy off the rip. But how many times have we been told the only way we would know if it's moving is if it were to stop? Right. Very well placed okey doke by him. That's why he's a magician.
Well, he's going to start talking about the effects that would happen if it stopped, right? So in other words, if you're sat in a chair listening to this now, right, assume that the chair isn't actually stationary, that it's moving at 1.2 million miles per hour. It actually is moving at 1.2 million miles an hour. You are moving that fast. That's how fast you are moving. Do you understand? You're all in the room. You're all nicely hypnotized, right? So given that you are moving at 1.2 million miles an hour, imagine what would happen if you suddenly stopped. That's what he's doing. So now I'll describe the catastrophe that would happen if we stopped, on the premise that everything's only moving normally and seeming normal because we're moving.
Slowed down the Earth, stopped it, reversed it, stopped it again, and sent it back. Yeah, nobody left on Earth.
As if that would actually reverse time, though.
Right, as if. Right.
As if.
So even if it did and could, he still killed 7 billion people.
No, he didn't. What we saw was a man claiming to be capable of flying in a place that isn't real, akin to Narnia, i.e. a second law of thermodynamics violation. He then, flew back through space and time, a la Einstein's mathematics of pseudo-Riemannian four-space geometry. So it's very much in line with nonsense from Einstein.
Okay. Or however many people were on Earth the year of that movie, which I think was 1970, in the late 70s. But
really?
So,
what a bunch of nonsense.
Here you go.
Say again?
What a bunch of nonsense. I mean, Superman was flying so fast, he literally broke the barriers of time and space. He didn't literally make the Earth turn the other way around. That was just from a camera perspective. He's going back in time now. The Earth wasn't changing. It was Superman that was going so fast.
He literally reversed the rotation of the Earth.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a Superman movie.
No, but look, they say maybe
just remember, Arwin, there's some
according
comic
to
book
the
fans
time
here.
space breaking thing, it's only because he's going that fast. Hold on.
He spins Earth backwards. He spins Earth the other direction, Arwin.
See, everybody.
Have you watched a Superman movie?
It looks. Arwin does this occasionally, right? He's got a vague understanding of Superman and the Superman movie, which you probably watched 20 years ago. But no, they're right in that regard, because they're saying, that's not in line with geodesic spending in pseudo-Riemannian four-space time. Well, yeah, okay, fine.
Yeah, that's the point. They've now got audience agreement that they're not being ridiculous. Of course, you don't turn back time. But of course, we've also got now the fact that the Earth is spinning isn't it? And it's a ball.
Adam, you gotta say as if they could do that. Meanwhile, you're staring at a magical spinning water ball with air not flying off it, and not saying as if the air could just stay there and rotate the way it is. It's hilarious.
Yeah, but you've
heard of this
accepted that,
thing-
haven't you? Because you're going as if Superman could turn it back. Anyway, back to my spinning ball with magic sticky air, which I now accept.
Yeah, exactly.
What's going to happen if it stops spinning?
You're arguing and debating and discussing the suspension of disbelief. You suspend disbelief that Superman can turn Earth in a vacuum the other way. And what you don't appreciate is that Earth in a vacuum is also you suspending disbelief. They're blurring the lines and saying, obviously we know that we're not suspending disbelief about Earth rotating in a sky vacuum, but how ludicrous that we should suspend disbelief about Superman making it go the other way. No, it's all a suspension of disbelief. Every aspect of it.
Thing called centrifugal force, right? The thing that makes you sort of fly off because somebody spun something around and things.
But now he's going to start getting into apologetics for his ball that's spinning.
Fly off.
It's what keeps bucket in the water when you do the whole windmill.
It sounds like you've done some experiments. Good. If you
Excuse me? It sounds like him swinging a bucket around is him doing experiments, does it, Tyson? Au contraire, you don't know what an experiment is. Him swinging a bucket around is not him observing a natural phenomena and then figuring out the cause of it by suppositional-based hypothesis experimentation. That's not what this is, Tyson. You bloody pseudoscientist clown pretender.
If you take a bucket of water, you can even with a cup of water. If you take it and if you spin it sort of fast enough, like windmill style, then the water will not come out.
Right.
Even though it was upside down. And if you ever played Matchbox Cars with...
What did you say, Adam?
I know. I see. I was triggered before he said the word experiment. But as I'm pointing out, bucket in a water, what's that got to do with any analogy about a spinning ball with water on the outside?
Well, he's working up to apologetics, I think.
No, but he's trying to convince you that you've got practical life experience of why water sticks to the outside of a spinning ball, because as a kid you put water in a bucket and span it around your head.
No, he's not. No. If he has, I'll be criticising him and say my estimations in wizardry will go down a lot. I don't think that's what the other guy might be asking about it, but I don't think Tyson's directly linking the bucket forcing its way to the top of the bucket with centrifugal forces to Earth not having the water fly off with gravity. I don't. Well, maybe he does.
Why is that concept been introduced then?
We don't know yet. Let's listen. We don't know yet.
Where the car goes upside down and then comes out the other side, you need sufficient centrifugal force to keep the thing up against the track.
Right on.
Okay.
I was a Hot Wheels guy, by the way. So.
Oh, you were? Okay. Oh,
yeah. So far he's clarifying something that would be the antithesis of ball Earth descriptions. So we'll just see where he goes. Just hold fire for a minute.
Hot Wheels guy. I know you said Matchbox. I get it.
Sorry, it was Hot Wheels that had the loop-to-loop. Excuse me. Forgive my. Okay. Then the track was yellow and it pieced together. I remember.
Okay, it's just so we're not distracted from what he's talking about. He's talking about a track with a car that's forced up, like he slapped his hand against his other hand, upwards against the track because of the force pushing against the track, like the water pushes against the top of the bucket.
For the whole thing.
Yes, and it made for a great way to like slap the bottom of a friend. It's like you take that Hot Wheels track and you just whack.
Yeah, we're way off track here, but hopefully they'll get back onto how this directly relates to the water not spinning off a preconceived notion of a ball Earth in a vacuum as a model.
Somebody.
Oh, okay. So you had issues as a child. Okay. That's another show. Well,
this is why he's got him as his co-host, right? So when it comes to something awkward and inconvenient that he's got to juxtapose with the nonsense of heliocentric worldviews, he can pad it out in between so you lose track of the actual thing being discussed. So when it comes to a convoluted juxtaposition, you won't realise that what you've had described up until this point is something forcing its way up against buckets and tracks. Because we're talking about childhood and blah, blah, blah.
You get them out.
You start believers now.
Sorry?
You're starting to think this is what he's trying to do, the old switcheroo here.
Possibly. I'm buying into what you've said.
Well, I see it as he has what he's showing the audience to be his everyman, and how the everyman that he has agrees with everything he says, and is in wonder or awe at how brilliant it is. That's how I see it. He's using this guy as the everyman.
Multiple
was kicked out of elementary school.
All right. So it turns out there's no such thing as centrifugal force.
He's just spent a prolonged period detailing the force and describing it and labeling it as such, but now he's going to tell you that there's no such thing. What gives?
It's the word we give to this thing that feels like a force operating on you if you are the water in that bucket, or if you're in that amusement park where I think they call it the cyclone, where you're sort of pinned against the wall of it and it rotates.
Yeah, it's a description. Yeah, okay.
And you feel this pressure increase on you. So what's happening is, because you're getting spun, you have...
Yes.
Can he even cite the correct name of the ride he's trying to describe? It's the gravitron. It's not the cyclone.
Yeah, but he's going to... Yeah, he doesn't want that much convolution, does he? The gravitron pushes you to the outside and you press against a wall? That doesn't sound good.
Well, right after he just said that force that would do that doesn't exist.
Right.
It's hilarious.
Have an urge to fly off at a tangent of that circle. Okay? That urge to fly off, that is prevented.
Yeah, I've got to stop that.
Yeah, go on. You go first, Adam.
When have we moved from denying forces to describing them as urges? What the hell is an urge? This is a PhD physicist, and he's now said there's no such thing as centrifugal force. It's an urge to fly off. What is this cookery for? What's about to come? That's
you will
required.
feel as a centrifugal force.
So you're saying you will feel it as a centrifugal force? The one that doesn't exist? If it didn't exist, we wouldn't be feeling it. And you wouldn't be describing it and giving it a label of centrifugal. Why are you doing this, you stupid clown?
Okay. It might be about to okey-doke it and change it to centripetal force.
In any moment, the walls just disappeared on the cyclone. Is it called the cyclone? Whatever that was called. The flying
I forget
saucer.
the name of it, but
Gravitron.
I do remember.
I think I'm misremembering because Cyclone is the roller coaster at Coney Island.
At Coney Island.
So whatever that thing is, we've all
gone.
Because it's supposed to be opposing gravity, isn't it? Because you stick to the wall. You don't go down the wall. It's a anti-gravity device, isn't it? In the rhetoric of the fairground.
All done it. Right?
That's right, Adam. Which is that's just want to say that's right, and which is a complete contradiction to what they need to have the claim, what they need to claim, which is to just sticking to the outside of a ball, especially at the equator, because of gravity.
If at any instant while that's spinning, the walls just disappeared, you would just fly off at a tangent. Everybody would just fly off, going in exactly the tangential direction they were going. Right at the moment the walls disappeared. Okay, so
Nathan,
yes,
he just disproved. He just disproved all and any claims of the conservation of momentum for things like airplanes and all this. Not that they needed disproving, but he just said the walls weren't there; the people would fly off. Yeah, so you won't be conserving the momentum of the thing rotating. You're going to be thrown off because you're not physically attached to it.
You're trying to drag in anti-flat Earth rhetoric into Neil deGrasse Tyson's spiel. We could do this, but I'm not going to. I'm sorry.
Okay. But that is an official claim these days, just to let you know.
Yeah, their official claim is Coriolis deflection. That would mean that the item that you're observing seemed to drift at 15 degrees an hour has to leave the the non-inertial turning reference frame and enter the inertial reference frame. Ergo, they're detached. So the anti-flat Earth rhetoric of conservation of momentum, that is to say that an item leaves the non-inertial turning reference frame and tracks along with the non-inertial reference frame because it's retained the quote-unquote angular momentum. Number one, that description in and of itself is flawed because to retain angular momentum, it means you're retaining the angular aspect. In other words, you'd start spinning at 15 degrees an hour when you left the ground. It's meaningless drivel that they spew from the anti-flat Earth side.
He's not said that.
He hasn't. I know.
Said that. This is Tyson the priest. He's described it.
I tried to put a stop to it, but Brian re-clarified it.
He's not. Yeah, he just says you'll fly off at a tangent. So
yeah, which is what will happen to you if you're not.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He's very clever, Tyson. If in their world, that's exactly. So he's not invoked any of the anti-flat earther, angular retention, linear speed. He's not said that. He's not gone to their rhetoric.
I don't think Brian thinks he does.
That you wouldn't
That's not what Brian's saying. Brian's saying, listen up, anti-flat earthers. Here's a real priest of heliocentrism debunking your debunk of our pointing out we don't have Earth rotation. You say it retains the angular momentum. Well, no, not even in your heliocentric rhetoric. Are we done now? Now we've dealt with and disposed with the anti-flat earthers because of this.
No, I wasn't making that point about it.
Brian was.
Saying, no, I was saying I'm just appreciating the craft here. How
Me too, I'm trying
to nod along.
Yeah, I'm trying to.
The claim of the retention of momentum is far more official these days than maybe you realise, Nathan. That's what they have to claim concerning these days.
It's anti-Coriolis and it's anti-priesthood of heliocentrism. When we hear it, I don't care how prevalent it is amongst the anti-flat earthers. Please, let's not dwell on this, please.
Okay, I won't. I'm just pointing out some things that are important. Let it go.
For us, it is important. That's why I have dwelled on it to a certain extent. But I do want to move on. I want to hear what's coming.
Damn, Chuck, you're so cynical, Chuck. So what the wall does is prevent that from happening, and then it feels as though there's a force acting on you. And by the way, that is the worst ride to take if you get nausea. If you feel,
oh, who cares? Compare this to a heliocentric spinning Earth.
Feel nausea on amusement park rides, because if you try to throw up, the throw up will
who cares?
Get pinned to the back of your throat. You'd have to turn your head sideways, and then the throw up goes.
Yeah, vomit advice from Neil deGrasse Tyson. Thank you so much.
Sideways onto the next person. So it's.
I don't think we have a problem here, Neil.
I always notice that ride always had an extra smell to it.
Oh, did you now? Well, you can't even remember the name of it, yet you can remember it out of smell.
To other rides. So anyhow, so this centrifugal force, you will feel it.
Well, you just said it wasn't. Make up your bloody mind.
As though it's a real force. And
so this force you feel, that we can think of as not being a force when you feel it. Anybody else got an issue with this? Because I certainly have.
Yeah, that's why I raised the question. Why did he switch to describing it as an urge to jump off the roundabout? That's when he brought the tangent in, which I didn't oppose. We've just got to see where he's crafting it. It's going somewhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're now lost as to
That's
what
why we gave it
the point is.
And by the way, Coriolis force is another fictitious force. It feels like it's a real force operating, but it's the product of other things going.
No, it doesn't feel like anything. It's an observational-based effect. It doesn't feel anything. If you're observing Coriolis drift, you're observing something that hovers above a roundabout, looking like it's coming towards you, as you spin towards it. What's being felt in that not actual deflection of a drone hovering over a roundabout? It hovers, you move towards it. Unless you smack into it, you're not feeling a damn thing. You're observing not actual deflection. It's not like there's some force that's about to throw you off a roundabout. This is the craft, Adam. Convoluting these two things.
The feel is the key word here. Obviously, when you're pinned against the wall because some mechanical device is spinning you, you feel that. But no, I've never heard of feeling the Coriolis.
You can't. It's an optical effect. It's a sight gag, as QE describes it.
The Coriolis force turns storms into...
No, it doesn't. Not actual deflection does not turn storms. That is incorrect, Tyson. Wrong. Coriolis is a not actual force, as you've just accurately identified, an effect that can be observed, an illusion that appears to happen when it doesn't actually force anything to do anything ever. Yet you're saying it now makes storms move in a certain direction. Absolutely absurd. Not actual forces don't move storms.
In a clockwise.
No. Not any direction. They're not doing anything if it's a not actual force. But what he's saying is like the roundabout throws you off because of a not actual force. No. You're feeling a force. Coriolis isn't that. Coriolis is you observing a not actual deflection occur. I.e. the thing hovers above a roundabout and you turn beneath. You're the thing moving, not the item. So no, definitely not. You turning underneath wind will never cause wind to change direction, create direction, do anything. You observing a tree as you turn beneath it, seem to move when it's rooted into the ground, won't make the tree spin in a certain direction. Because it's not actually moving, it's you turning underneath that creates this effect. And the effect isn't actual. So it's not going to move storms.
Counterclockwise
direction
in the north and clockwise in the south. In fact, we'll land there at the end of this explain.
Clockwise and anti-clockwise are relative directions. A storm that I can observe, if I moved to the other side of it, would be moving in the other direction. If I look at a clock that's transparent and go to the other side of the clock, it's moving in the opposite direction. Is it suddenly the hands are going the wrong way? Just because I've observed it from the other way. If I cross over the road looking at a roundabout and look at the traffic going from left to right, after I cross the road, it goes from right to left. Has it changed direction? Or is it merely relative when you say anti-clockwise, clockwise? Because it's meaningless drivel.
So what that means is if you're on Earth and Earth is spinning...
What, if you beg the question that Earth is automatically rotating and that non-forces called Coriolis can make winds change direction, they can't. And you're begging the question.
You ought to feel some centrifugal force.
Yeah, you damn well better. We don't.
Yay!
You ought
to. What do you mean, yay? He's just said if you're on a spinning Earth, you'd feel some force. The one that would throw you off a roundabout. We don't. Meanwhile, we're supposed to see Coriolis deflection. That's the not actual drift, definitely not a force, definitely not making winds do anything. We should see that, and we don't see that either.
Now, who would feel the most centrifugal force on Earth? Where would you be?
Anywhere. It's supposed to have a 15 degrees an hour claimed rotation. So who cares? It's happening according to you, and we don't feel it.
No.
At
the equator.
I did a presentation. This is one of my old school presentations, isn't it? So
you're asking about rim velocity. If so, equator. Yeah. 1,000 miles an hour. Yeah. Over 1,000 miles an hour. I think it's 1,024 claimed.
At the center, like at the equator.
At the equator, okay.
Right.
Now, of course, we all finish one...
So what Neil deGrasse Tyson said is, where would you feel the most force? Well, where there's 1,000 miles an hour rim velocity. Do you feel any force? No. Would it be measurable? Yeah. Adam's got the maths for it. You'd feel it.
That'd be the same force he said doesn't exist and also called fictitious. That force.
But he's convoluted that with an actual force. Something that would throw you off a roundabout. Oh, it's not really a force, but it'll throw you off a roundabout. Oh, really? So when you convolute not actual deflective forces of Coriolis with actual forces that can throw you off a roundabout, we have a not actual deflection that is about to describe not feeling. When you don't feel Coriolis, you see it if it happens, which it doesn't on a turning Earth, because we're not turning. Nothing's deflecting. If it was, we'd have shortened flight times, because Earth would be moving underneath aeroplanes.
Rotation in 24 hours. However, they're traveling a much bigger distance to do so.
So they'd feel it more. There'd be a higher rim velocity. 1,000 miles an hour.
Okay, they move the entire circumference of the Earth, about 25,000 miles, in one day. Whereas as you approach Santa Claus on the North Pole, your circle becomes shorter and shorter.
So therefore we'd feel less rim velocity as we moved further and further towards the presupposition of a pole, which you'll need an R value for, to assume Earth rotation. So no. Definitely not. We would notice...
Go on, Adam. Just give a definition, Ricky. It's been bugging me why he's describing how he's able to get away, because he don't lie with calling it not a real force. We'll just give a quick... Why is centrifugal force called a fictitious force? You're going to like this. It's reference phrase. When an object undergoes rotation from the object's reference frame, which is a non-inertial reference frame, the object feels there is a radially outward force, a centrifugal force acting on it. However, from the inertial reference frame, this force doesn't exist at all. So if you're not on the spinning roundabout, there is no force for you. So that's why they call it fictitious. It's as best I can, which is therefore not to imply that it's not a force you experience. It is a force you experience. It's just described that way from the inertial reference frame.
So then why is he talking about how people won't feel it?
Well, there's your switcheroo, because you can use the scientific term in the physics term in this, that it's a fictitious force. It's then switcherooed it to say you wouldn't feel it, as if that's true, that you don't feel it on the roundabout or the gravitron.
So you are moving slower and slower. Okay.
Okay.
And centrifugal.
So the people at the people.
Demonstrated by what? You've made an assertion we're moving 1,000 miles an hour if we're on the equator. No. Why would it be the case that you'd make the further assertion that we're going slower and slower as we move to the North Pole? As demonstrated by what?
Well, the assumption that we're rotating.
But just the begging the question fallacy then.
Yeah.
People in Ecuador should all have their hands up, just going, wee!
Why is that funny? You've described roundabouts and people in fairgrounds. Now you're saying Earth's moving 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. He's saying you put your hands in the air and go, wee! And you laugh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's ludicrous. Yeah. No one's going to put their hands in the air 1,000 miles an hour on the equator because it would be like going on the most ludicrous roller coaster of your life. We'd all be dead at that velocity.
But there's the switcheroo now. So we laugh at it, we exaggerate it to a point of ridiculum to pretend that it'd be like on a roller coaster, which would be to deny the point that there would be a difference at different latitudes.
So by comparison, Tyson, given that we're moving at 1,000 miles an hour and in a bucket we'd be pressed up against the top of the bucket, and on a scale electric track with a loop-de-loop, we'd be pressed up against the track, and but for the fact that we're pressed up against the track, we'd be thrown off. Why on unholy hell wouldn't people moving at 1,000 miles an hour rim velocity with no wall not be thrown off also? They would.
Just like any good amusement park ride. All the equator people.
All the equator people. Yay!
Yeah, you're laughing at it, but it's absurd. So yeah, this is your rhetoric, and it is absurd. So yeah, laugh it up, you stupid rhetoric.
That's what's hilarious about this. This is their rhetoric that they're trying to establish to people that is real, and here they are laughing at how ridiculous it is. It's amazing.
Did that super chat shout out come through? No, it didn't. Shout out to Uncle Ben for hitting the super chat. Thank you very much indeed for your support. Now we hit 118 viewers. Should have stick to my word and not round out the live show. Given that we're too short. 115 currently.
That's cheap.
No, you owe
No,
her.
that's cheap.
Come on now.
I think because it's got so close.
Subscribers not liking you.
Right, well, I'll give it 10 more minutes, right? If we can hit 120, because there's only 5 more people, please share the show. If we can get to 120, I'll continue throughout this response. But I'll just do 10 more minutes because we came so close. Please share the show.
So, you get a photographer to take your picture and sell it back to you at the end of that?
Exactly.
So...
Well, I mean, should we just take on all of these absurd reactions to their own claim? Because I'm more than happy to just take that and just use it. Yeah, you idiots think that you can like put your hands in the air and get the photo at the end on the equator, don't you bunch of muppets?
So the equator is about 25,000 miles around, and it takes 24...
Where'd you get that number from? I wonder where he got that number from. Anybody know where he got that number from? What did they measure to get that, I wonder? Could it be the equatorial plate? Could it be Polaris?
Radius?
Where did he get that value from?
Angle measurements to Polaris.
Angle measurements to Polaris? So off a flat plane. So this value that Neil deGrasse Tyson has just laid out for you is a flat Earth measurement. Maybe you can tell us where he got his claim to be equatorial circumferential value from. Because we know where it came from. It came from a measurement to Polaris.
4 hours for one full rotation.
Off a flat plane.
Okay. So if you divide those two numbers, you get approximately.
So what if we just beg the question and then start dividing up numbers based on your begging the question fallacy that Earth's rotating at a certain rate? No, why would we just assume it and then start making calculations after the assumption? I don't get it. You haven't evidenced it with anything at all. In fact, the evidence you provided would lead us to being on a roller coaster, having our photos taken at 1,000 miles an hour on the equator. That's the evidence. The absurdity of your claim is your evidence. And then back to beg the question. No. Let's ignore all the absurdity of my claim and how it lays out so far and just get back to begging the question that we are in fact moving. Right, Tyson?
Ultimately, they're going to approximately 1,000 miles an hour.
You're just going to assume we're moving 1,000 miles an hour. We've now got a very straight face and we're now straight-faced moving at 1,000 miles an hour. All right, well, while you're detailing it, I'm just going to pepper it with what you peppered it with only moments earlier. So let's see how that goes.
Right. Okay. And that's fast.
Yeah, hands in the air, get your photographs taken, because we're on 1,000 miles an hour Earth that's turning.
I mean, that's faster than you would ever be going in anything in your life.
Yeah, and we're not, and we aren't, and it's ludicrous to assert it. We'd all have our heads ripped off. Yeah, it's absolutely ludicrous. Elvis Kafovic says, Wizard smoked the grass. Nathan, you are running his frames of reference. Smash the super chat. Ruining, sorry. Thank you very much for the super chat. Really appreciate the support. Thank you very much indeed.
That's right.
Okay. Now, you don't feel that.
Why not? Is there a wall there? Is there a bottom of a bucket there? Why don't we feel it, Tyson?
Because first, Earth connects you to its surface, but...
What, like we would be connected to the wall that was stopping us being thrown off the surface? No. In the earlier examples, there was a wall on the top of a bucket to stop us being thrown off. Now you're saying that when the bucket's upside down, in mid-motion being swung, there is no ground under the bucket. You know, there's a roof for it to press upon. You know, that force that you said you won't feel that's going to throw you off a roundabout? Where's that? You're saying that the ground is like the wall of the bucket? No, that's like a roof in this example, Tyson. How are you comparing the ground when the bucket didn't have a ground?
But also, you're moving very uniformly.
And? So you're going to be thrown off at a tangent uniformly?
Through space, to do so.
No, space is fake. Second law of thermodynamics violation.
And the air around you is moving with you.
Oh, so no Coriolis effect?
Wow.
Hold on, Tyson. If the air is moving with the ground, then how in holy fuck did the ball drift through the goal? You double-speaking contradictory clown. If the air's moving with the Earth, it would need something like a track or the bottom of a bucket to press on. It's pressure. But if that's the case, then that completely contradicts Neil deGrasse Tyson's claim that a ball that leaves the ground drifts through a goal because Earth turns beneath it. Now he's saying that ball example isn't true. Well, the ball won't be drifting because it's in a separate reference frame, Neil. If the air's moving with the ground...
1,000 miles an hour, you feel, oh my gosh, I'm in motion and I...
Nathan.
Yes.
I told you that claim is far more mainstream than it was. There's the proof of it.
Yeah,
Right.
he doesn't make that
Can
claim
we all
very
take a
often.
moment, take our caps off, kneel before Brian, and tell him that we were wrong? When we hand-waved and poo-pooed...
Come on now.
We all
No, Brian. Brian tried to let you know that it's more mainstream than you thought because you only held it with the anti-flat earthers. And then when I watched this video and I heard him say, before we had today's show, so I didn't know what Brian was going to say. When I heard him say that the air moves, I thought about the football too. I thought this is going to be great. So I'll leave it there.
So which is it, Tyson?
Thank you.
Just cap in hand. I'm sorry, I was wrong. You were right. I was incorrect to dismiss it as anti-flat earth rhetoric. I was wrong. You were right. Okay?
Thank you.
Right, Tyson. Which is it? Earth as a non-inertial turning reference frame causing claim to be Coriolis deflection in a football in the inertial reference frame. That's separate to the turning ground beneath it. Or is the ground an atmosphere, oxymoron, sphere-shaped air, not dispersing into a vacuum, moving with the ground, meaning there is no deflection in the football? You double-speaking contradictory clown. Can't be both. Either the ball deflects because Earth turns beneath it, or it doesn't because they're all moving as one. You can't have it both ways, you double-speaking contradictory clown.
I feel the jiggle and the shake. By the way, pre-Galileo, people's arguments against Earth's motion was if Earth were turning and moving, we'd feel it.
Yeah, and observe it in balls drifting, according to you.
Right. Okay. Why wouldn't you feel, if you're on a horse and buggy, you...
And then I got out a calculator, and I calculated how much the game had been thrown by the fact Earth was turning underneath the ball, and I tweeted. Right, fuckwit?
Feel that. All right? You feel the bumps and the wiggles and the jiggles, and even if the...
Now you just feel the pain of losing the football game because of the not actual deflection of the ball as the Earth rotated underneath it in a separate reference frame. The air being separate to the ground moving underneath, according to Neil deGrasse Tyson. He tweeted it, right? You did your little calculation about how separate they were and how much the ball drifted as a result of them being separate, and now you're telling an audience that they're attached and you won't feel anything. Oh, really? That completely contradicts your Coriolis claim, Neil deGrasse Tyson. What an outrage. Now, if you're a ball-believing muppet, you're screwed either way. Earth moving with a begging the question atmosphere sphere-shaped air in violation of the second law of thermodynamics? No. Air is unbonded, Tyson. It doesn't attach itself to a non-inertial turning reference frame, giving you no effect of Coriolis in contradiction to your statements that you tweeted about a football game. Air is unbonded. Definitely not bonded to the ground, moving along with it when you assume it turns, so that you can have no effect to feel, no effect to throw you off the roundabout as detailed earlier. So it doesn't matter which way he picks his argument. Either Earth's turning underneath aeroplanes shortening their flights travelling west, or Earth and atmosphere sits in violation of natural law and gas behaviour, because suddenly unbonded gas is bonded to a turning Earth, he assumes. You're screwed either way, and you're a double-speaking contradictory clown. Go ahead, whoever.
Nathan, this is the way he said you would feel it. Here it comes, just like they put in the front end of all the arguments, it's their weakest point. So like the edge, where's their edge? You know, boats falling over a flat earth edge. So it's their weakest point because they're the one with the edge. And now their weakest point is you would feel it, but he's saying it in such a way, you would feel it. And then here it comes. Let's finish it.
Ride is smooth, you feel it. So clearly Earth can't be moving. Of course, we're not rotating either. Everything is moving around us. So it wasn't...
So everything's moving around us. Clearly we're not moving. Clearly no ball deflection to tweet about then. So you were just wrong. You were just lying when you tweeted about how much Earth turned under the football to cause Coriolis deflection at 15 degrees an hour because they were separate. So you were just lying. You're just a con man. Just depends what suits your narrative at whatever interview you're in front of. In front of a pretty blonde, you'll tell her Earth turns underneath footballs. In front of your brother, you'll tell him that Earth and atmosphere move together. Just depends. I'll lie about it whichever way I like. If I lie about Earth turning underneath footballs, a flat earther will point out that would shorten flight times when travelling west. And if I say Earth and atmosphere are moving together, a flat earther points out that gas is unbonded.
Or you could just point out that Earth is not a non-inertial turning reference frame.
Yeah, we did. He begged the question immediately. He didn't provide any evidence for his begging the question fallacy that Earth's rotating, and we've debunked the premise. Ours debunked.
That supported the idea that we're in the...
Just a moment. Sorry, just I meant to get in before you press play again. For Neil deGrasse Tyson, what would be the effects we would observe if we were on a stationary Earth and the objects in the sky or the celestial bodies were moving?
It would be called Coriolis effect. Their claim is that Earth turns underneath as a separate non-inertial turning reference frame to cause 15 degrees an hour of deflection, known as Coriolis. That's their claim. Proof. He's claimed it. He said it was demonstratable at a football game.
Yeah, but I'm trying to say, you missed what I said. What would we experience if we lived on a stationary Earth where the celestial bodies were moving? Would it be exactly what we experience now? Because it seems to me that all these people are ever trying to do is trying to hijack a stationary Earth and try and claim that that stationary Earth is proof that we're moving. Like no curvature is proof that we have curvature. This is what they do.
You know, we would actually feel what he's describing if we were stationary, right? Because again, just how to go back to the beginning. Oh, we talked about what would happen when it stops rotating, right? So that's the only time that they assert there's any effect to this rotating magical ball that they're actually laughing at while trying to tell us how we live on it, right? That they would have to conflate a stationary Earth with this. It's insane.
Yeah, what different effects would we observe and feel? What different things would we experience and observe if the Earth was stationary? Nothing different. Nothing. This is exactly what it would be like because it is stationary.
Right. Because we haven't quite hit 120. We got to 119. But I'm going to be a man of my word and say if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, though, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. Another massive thank you to all of you smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, joined as a member, and all that good stuff. Once again, if you're watching on a Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering stream, stay tuned so you can hear the rest of Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson being taken to pieces. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Feel. And look how they're making fun of that. Like, yeah, oh, there's people over there should be saying "we." How many times have I done that?
It's not just what's happening with our ego. It kind of made sense when you thought about it. Okay?
Right.
What they didn't realize is that if you made things smoother and smoother and smoother, you will feel the motion less and less and less.
Right. But you claim to have a measurable effect based on the fact that they're separate reference frames. Coriolis effect, you know, with the football.
Right.
Hold
So
on.
ask any.
Hold on. He's wrong because it's acceleration you feel, not smoothness. That's just wrong.
Anybody on an ocean liner, when the ocean liner first pulls out from the port, you don't really notice that. And you look around and you say, wait a minute, why is the dock going by me? And you look around and you realize you're the one in motion.
That's a lie.
Not.
You do feel it. That's a total lie.
lie.
It's like you feel being on a train and a plane.
That's a total
You
lie.
do. That's just an attempt at trying to magic people's belief, actual experiences away.
Yeah, I've had my own boat. I've had my own boat. I felt it. I've been on Carnival Cruise Lines. I felt it. I've been on the plane. I felt it. I'm in a car and I feel it. This is a total lie.
The dock. Okay. And so the bigger the vessel, sort of the more stately is its movement through space and time.
What? You can't move through time? What do you mean? Time's not a road. It's a convention. It's not something you can travel.
and the less you notice its motion. So, I was once on a bus on the Channel going from...
What's the Channel?
Paris to London.
Oh, tunnel. Oh, okay.
Okay. And this is a long tunnel.
He means channel tunnel. He's just got a remembrance of what it's called. So channel tunnel. Okay.
Not only goes under land, but goes under the English Channel. Okay. Yeah. And so that is very well designed. It's very smooth. So I'm in a bus and...
What a load of bollocks. Yeah, I've been on that multiple times. It ain't that smooth. What are you talking about? You're having people who believe that they're on a train, that they're not moving. You damn well know you're moving on the Channel Tunnel.
That they drive the bus onto a car, and the car has no windows. Onto a railroad car. Car has...
You still know you're moving. I assure you. I've done it.
No windows. So I'm in there, and I feel it kind of move a little.
So you feel it! You stupid idiot!
A bit, but it's a slow acceleration.
So you feel it? So this is an example of you feeling acceleration then, you stupid numpty.
And I think it has very high top speeds, but I have no concept of this.
What? You've got no concept of something you've literally just verbalized? In the same breath?
Okay. Now, inflate this scenario to the entire Earth.
And then I definitely feel it. Like you felt a little bit? Yeah? You felt it. You didn't give me an example of not feeling it. You gave me an example of feeling it. So you're going to say, what? If we scale it up, we'll feel it exactly the same? More? Less? You described feeling it.
Okay.
And he felt it while inside a bus and inside another enclosed carriage. Not on the outside exposed to a massive vacuum.
I see. So what he's saying is, if I fly a drone whilst riding a skateboard on a bus on the Channel Tunnel, then you won't feel a thing.
Well, hold on, because the thing is, when you are going in a curved path, that's considered a state of constant acceleration. If he's going to beg the question of R, right, you should feel it because that is a change in acceleration.
1,000 miles an hour as Earth rotates. You are moving 18 miles per second?
Go on, whoever it was.
Real quick before.
Yeah, that was me. I've actually.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Nah, you go.
No, you go ahead, Chocolate.
All right, real quick. I was just going to say.
We were in Switzerland.
That was deliberate. That was played out. Go on, Chocolate, then 10th.
I'll go real quick. I just wanted to point out again, like it's a false equivalence that they do all the time. Instead of describing this open system, we're supposed to be on the outside of this ball. When they want to describe motion, they always put you in a closed system.
Right.
It's another okie doke.
Go on, 10th.
Yeah. We were traveling through Switzerland, and we had to drive our rent-a-car onto a train. And that train had to go through one of the longest tunnels through a mountain that was bored out. And it was completely dark, and they told us what was going to happen before we got there. So you go really dark here. And you know what? I felt the whole thing all the way. So I don't know what Neil deGrasse Tyson is smoking.
In orbit around the sun, and you don't feel any of that. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to tell you, under hypnosis, that we're traveling at thousands of miles an hour, accelerating because we're rotating in all different directions around the sun. You got that? Yeah, you got that? Good. We're not going to feel any of that. Okay? Okay. No, we'd feel all of it.
Okay. You don't feel any of that. So.
Because I say so. Just because Neil deGrasse Tyson says that you're moving at thousands upon thousands of miles an hour in all different directions, because he says so, you're not going to feel it. He's just giving you an example at what? 80 miles an hour to 120 miles an hour where he did feel it. But if you scale it up to thousands of miles an hour in all different directions, moving around the sun and rotating about an axis, you're not going to feel a thing. Why? Just because I said so.
Like it's a magic speed.
The magic speed.
Here's my point. All right. So the faster you rotate,
okay,
the greater is the centrifugal force that will operate on you.
So the more you want to be thrown off the roundabout, then.
Listen, don't go back
That's only
again.
part of
Go
the
back
equation.
again. Sorry, John.
That's only part of the equation. You got to take into account your distance from center of rotation. You know, that he's only including the speed of rotation, but that's not the only factor to figure out, or the rate of rotation, but yeah, there's other factors to determining that.
You need
not just the
all
one you mentioned.
for that.
Yeah.
Go back a couple of seconds, Nathan. He almost said, "You feel," and he went, and he stopped himself.
Miles per second in orbit around the sun, and you don't feel any of that. Okay?
Okay.
You don't feel any of that. So here's my point. All right? So the faster you rotate,
okay,
the greater is the centrifugal force that will operate on you. Okay?
Oh!
Boom. The faster you rotate, the more you'll feel it. What? The force that you're feeling. Maybe if we describe it as observing it from the inertial reference frame, then we can describe it as a not actual force. Go on, Brian.
Nobody in my field uses the scientific method. What was that?
On the set uses.
Okay, so let's go back to all the residents of Ecuador, which is not the only country that straddles the equator. Okay,
right.
In fact, the equator goes entirely through the middle of Africa, for example. All right, so here.
What's the equator? Where'd you get the measurement for it? Oh, from a flat Earth angle measurement to Polaris. This description you're using of an equator comes from flat Earth.
I'm lost as to how he's got the cheek to go on there, because he said you don't feel that. Then he's described that you would feel something if something rotates, and the more it rotates, the faster it rotates, the more you'll feel it. Now he's going to go on after that contradiction and describe what will happen if we stop rotating.
Here we go.
Adam.
Well, in the
You
middle
can
of all
ask-
that, he started telling you about all the other people in Africa who should also be feeling all this.
No, but it's the order in which he's doing things, and he moves past that straight contradiction of opposition. You don't feel it because he says so. It's not validated as to why you don't feel it. Then he goes on to describe how the force would increase with greater speed. And with that next assumption, because we're at the equator, that's the greatest speed, he's now going to describe the catastrophic effects of it stopping. And you've missed the fact that he's contradicted himself, hasn't he? In terms of, yeah.
If it's trying to fling you off the Earth,
So he's got.
Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say, I know Chocolate was also going to say something, but I'll go. I was going to say, I've always felt things like if I did a skateboard at low speeds, I felt it. If I did a bicycle, just the other day, it snowed here and it was icy roads. I felt going slow. I felt going fast. I always feel everything. What's this guy saying? That our senses of feel like disappear? What's he saying here?
Doesn't say anything to that. He just makes a statement that you don't feel any of the stuff that's to do with the ball Earth spinning and the heliocentric model. You just don't. Moving on. Next statement.
That's a little weird. Don't we have organs in our inner ear and systems that tell us when we're moving, that detect acceleration and motion? And we have a vestibular system in our heads that does that, equilibrium and such. So we're gonna ignore that, Mr. PhD smoking the grass? Guess so.
Well, it's what you said earlier.
If you look at what
He's
centrifugal force,
describing living on a. I'm sorry, Brian. He's describing living on a stationary Earth. That's what he's describing.
yeah, I mean, when you brought up centrifugal force earlier, that is not a downward force. That is an outward force. The reason why you stick to the inside of that circle when they spin you around is because you're being thrown out, away from the rotation. So that is an outward force that you were feeling going out the way, right? So he's after just talking about something that is a change in acceleration,
because it's trying to throw you away from itself. That's what the rotation does. It tries to throw you like water off a tennis ball. You know, in time lapse, it throws the water away from itself within its rotation. That's what it's trying to do. And then he's trying to say that, well, we what how did he put? He didn't say the word. He wouldn't say the word field. The operation of it. He said you notice the operation of it.
The effect the force would have on you. The effect the force would have on you. Instead of saying you feeling it, the effect the force would have on you.
Yeah, he wouldn't say the word field, but he wouldn't say that. See, the point I'm making is that what centrifugal force is a change in acceleration. It's trying to accelerate you away from the rotating object. That's what it is.
It's also on a circular path. And if you listen to that long-winded channel analogy, at what point was and he gives the clarification. It's a straight, smooth thing. Yeah. Well, it's not a circular motion then, is it? Where you would experience centrifugal forces. So all he's talking about is whether you can detect the speed you're going at if you've got other sensors closed off, to kind of validate his point in his analogy, which is not linked. He's not got a circular track. Otherwise, you would feel on the outside side of the carriage, or in your chair, slight pushing, wouldn't you? If it was going at really at 1,000 miles an hour on an R-based thing, you would feel that effect. But the analogy he gives doesn't include centrifugal force. It's a straight line train. Flim flam.
Force of gravity is resisting back. By what force is it trying to fling you off? That upward centrifugal force subtracts from the gravitational force that the Earth is trying to put on you.
Gravity's not a force.
Gravitational force. But his own words, as he goes into in-depth describing gravity not as a force in other podcasts.
He just gave us net 40.
Yep.
He's about to make a bigger claim, I think, with regards to what you'd weigh at different latitudes.
That's exactly where he's going, Adam. That's exactly what I thought too.
So, Chuck, what do you weigh here and now?
Called it.
192 pounds. Yeah.
You used to be like 170. So
I used to be 178.
Yeah.
And now I have a Corona baby that I'm pregnant with.
Corona.
I'm pregnant with a Corona baby.
All right, I'll give you the 100.
What are they talking about? Corona baby?
Well, they were supposed to be talking about Atmos effect, but now they're talking about somebody getting the Corona. I don't know.
90 pounds, okay?
Okay.
So if you do the math, you run to Ecuador, because we're in the Western Hemisphere, so let's stay there.
Hemisphere? What? Why would we assume that we're on a sphere? Why would we do that? So we're going to be traveling south towards the equator, but you're going to assume that when we arrive, we've arrived in part of a sphere? No, I don't assume that.
What's a Western Hemisphere? I've only ever heard of a Northern and a Southern Hemisphere.
Regardless, we're assuming sphericity.
You run to Ecuador, you will not be 190 pounds.
Demonstrated by what? Where's this demonstrated? Because you say so, you bloody wizard?
You'll be like 185 pounds.
Really? So there's lots of gold trading hands by moving it from one place to another to make it way more, is there?
What?
That's how significant it is.
Well, I can actually explain what he's talking about. They actually supposedly do take this into account with gold. That's supposedly that they do take it into account. Now, people can research that if they want, and they can correct me on it. What this is there is more warm circulating air at the equator because that's where the most convection happens. So you have more warm circulating air, which means you have more buoyancy. So if you weigh slightly less at the equator, it's due to the air, the warm air that's constantly rising at the equator.
Nothing to do with centrifugal force.
But is this true? Show me this being the case.
That's the
far
claim of
as
the
the
Atlas
goal-
effect, is it not? Is that not the claim of the Atlas effect?
Yeah, it's a claim.
Yeah, but
Where's it shown? You can show me the mass
I
Rett-Foss effect all day. Where's it shown to be happening?
Well, I think Wolfe 6020 weighed something in different places and showed it weighed different, but that's not taking into account, gravity's not a force.
He's just
so-
showing the effect. They're just
Right.
showing a numpty effect. Nathan's asking for, show me the cause.
That's
Correct.
if I did my math correct, and I think I did, there are pounds less that you weigh for living on the equator than for living anywhere else, simply because the spinning Earth is trying to fling you off.
Yeah.
So it's not a force we can feel. It's a force that's apparent, i.e. not actual, but simultaneously it makes you weigh less.
I could quickly screen share, and show you that, what they're claiming. And this is important because it's to make this claim, they turn gravity back into a Newtonian force, don't they?
When Adam's done, I want to come back to this.
Do you want me to do it now, Nathan? Or
Yeah, I've got you up. Well, I will have when you presented.
Did you hear me with the cause, possibly?
Yes, we heard you.
Thank you.
And yes, he's asserting gravitational net force zero in contradiction to his non-force of centrifugal throwing you off when you can't feel it. Therefore, no effect to observe. Net force zero.
Did you say Fox Force Zero?
Net force.
Oh,
Force 5.
Well, he asserted a cause in the natural world, didn't he? Step into the scientific method or the requirement of the scientific method
Yes,
to
that's
make
what,
a claim about it?
Yes, that's what I was driving at and what QE clarified. Did I use my words wrong, QE?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Okay. Right, so I'll just do it quickly. There's the maths for centrifugal force. Mass times velocity times radius, all that stuff. So stick the figures in. I've got a carousel with a radius of 5.4 meters, going at 2.4 meters per second. I kind of researched this to find that. It's just as easy as finding the supposed speeds of the ball Earth. So that's in there in meters. Do the maths for the centrifugal force on the carousel. Means you come out with a force of 54.98. Do it on the ball Earth at the equator, you come out with 1.596 newtons, which turns out to be 0.033% of the force of gravity at the equator, which to me is measurable. Just to back work that, if I want to take that equivalent force, and could I? So what I've done there, look, is take the 1.596 newtons, which is the supposed difference you would feel, a difference at the equator to, say, the North Pole. And I've took that number, backworked it into this to see what the equivalent force you would feel if you were on the carousel. So the speed the carousel will be going at 0.415 meters per second to give you that equivalent lift. That's the force you would feel at the, how much lighter you would be at the equator. Now, it's slightly confused because the opposition to gravity as a direct oppositional force in this model only occurs at the equator. At all the other points of latitude, it's going off at funky angles. That makes sense because the direction of gravity is no longer directly related to the direction of spin. So it goes off at a slightly different angle. So it's only at the equator, which is why I think he keeps referencing the equator, because you do have to get more complicated. Otherwise, it's only there that it would be in opposition to Newtonian gravity. I'm done.
Can I ask you a question, Adam? You know the way their claim, right, for this is that a force of gravity equals out the centrifugal force that you should feel at the equator on their ball, right? Does it only equal out at that point
right there. What I mean is the centrifugal force you would feel on a roundabout, a child's roundabout. Would that not also equal out as per the amount of gravity force that should be experienced on that roundabout? What I mean is that the only place that they can ever state that these two things are equaled out is at the equator on our globe. Isn't that a bit funny?
They're not equaled out. That's the claim. So at the equator, they're claiming that things will weigh slightly less because the oppositional force to Newtonian gravity, this centrifugal force, is directly opposite to it. It's not at 45 degrees like at the 45th latitude. Yeah, it's directly opposite. So it will have an impact on weight, where weight in their world is m times g. Yeah, because it's in opposition to the g. Well, it's only small, like I said, 0.33%, but that should mean in their worldview something should weigh differently.
Are you done now, Adam?
Yeah, go ahead, Sleeping.
So when Neil deGrasse Tyson makes that claim that things weigh slightly less at the equator, 2 points. One, where's the empirical evidence that supports that claim? Actual evidence, not rhetoric, because what he's doing is preaching it like it's gospel. But where's the actual empiracy? And two, think anytime somebody says that about weighing less at the equator, think plimsoll lines, because this is the direct real world evidence that contradicts the claim that he's making. The claim is that things weigh less at the equator. However, boats at the equator are weighing more in the water than boats like around the North Atlantic waters, because in the North Atlantic waters, relative density shows that the temperature of the water is much colder, the salinity is different, there is a variation in the medium that the boats sit in, so the boats are able to float better in the north than what they are at the equator, where they sit lower in the water, and that's why we have the plimsoll line. The plimsoll line tells you, don't overload your boat in the north, because when you get to the equator, despite the claim that Tyson makes that you should be lighter, what actually happens is you're heavier and your boat's more likely to sink, because if you overload it in the north, by the time you get to the equator, the water's changed around you and your boat's going to become very, very unstable and it'll sink. So that's why we have plimsoll lines, because the real world evidence doesn't support his claim that you're a little bit lighter at the equator. In actual fact, it's the opposite. Boats appear to be heavier at the equator. Yet if we're on a spinning ball, you would expect that position to be reversed. Obviously, relative density explains this. It's so intuitive that it doesn't even need explanation once you get told that the density of the water changes. But it's the opposite to what he claims. So where's the actual empirical evidence of anything changing its weight based on latitude without changing things around it, like the density of the air and how much pressure and how much humidity, because they're all relative density arguments, right? Watch for them conflating relative density arguments in lieu of the actual evidence that they need to show the claim, which is the rotation of the Earth point, because that's what they need. They need to show that, and there is none. I'm done.
Well, what they would say is because...
Yes, it's significant. So this concept of how much do you weigh...
Diet, I just need a plane ticket.
It changes your weight, it won't change your mass.
Oh,
let's make that clear, okay?
Mass? What's that?
Mass.
No, but you see what? That's the whole claim, isn't it? Changes your weight, because weight is m times g.
That's the bunk.
Yes, I know. That's why I keep raising it, because that's fundamental to his claim. He's denying Einsteinian gravity.
Hey, Sleeping Warrior, that was one heck of a explanation. If you'd have stopped like 10 seconds before the end, it would have been perfect.
Is that a compliment or an insult? It's difficult to tell.
That's a compliment.
That's good as it gets, I think.
It was a shit sandwich, actually, but yeah.
If you're chubby on the equator, you're chubby.
Before you start again, I came in on this late. Did anyone actually show the weight changes, or did they just give us a GeoStreber chart?
No, they didn't show us.
No,
we just told him
we
what
did.
he would weigh at the equator in Ecuador.
Yeah, no evidence.
So you guys are chasing after this without even seeing the effect first.
It's the first thing I said. Where's this shown?
Okay,
John, we started out with Superman turning the Earth time backwards in the Earth. So, don't. At no point did we have hopes of proofs.
As if.
Everywhere.
Daggone it.
Now, here's someone who does not benefit from this, and that's, of course, Santa Claus. Because as you go from the equator...
He's just laughing at you. Globe-believing Muppets. He's just laughing at you.
That's
and
the
you
second
go
time we brought up Santa
to
Claus.
farther and farther north or south. Of course, this works the other way. And you go farther and farther away from the equator. The circle that you travel is smaller each day.
Where'd you get that equator value from? Further and further away from it. How are you going to be measuring that, I wonder?
Your speed is lower. We're here in sort of 40 degrees, between 30 and 40 degrees latitude. Most of the population of the world lives...
Latitude? That's an interesting term. Where'd you get that from?
That latitude.
Go on.
No, I said nice. Exactly.
And north and south. And at this latitude, we're going about 800 miles an hour.
Because, as evidenced by... Are we not going to feel it? Net force 0, no effect to observe. But we simultaneously weigh differently at different points on an Earth that's turning. Because we don't feel the rim velocity throwing us off, simultaneously being held by gravity, in contradiction of every example you've given of a centrifugal force. Okay. Yeah, I don't buy any. This is all nonsense.
He's about to validate it by proving that Santa gets none of this benefit because he lives at the North Pole. Now, if that's not a proof, see?
Well, it's really nice of you guys to let him have the R value for these assumptions, but it still doesn't work out even if you give him that, and that's just sad.
Nah, he just sneaking them in like through customs and shit. We didn't give it to him.
Due east, so that's slower than the equator. Guess who's not moving sideways at all? Has no sideways velocity. It's Santa Claus on the North Pole. All he's doing is sort of rotating like this.
Because, as evidenced by...
But he's not getting
we are
flung.
Now at the claim, Nathan, that because Santa weighs what Santa weighs and he gets no weight loss, therefore we know that we know the Earth's rotating. Is this what his evidence is?
Superman and Santa Claus.
Yeah.
And Chan
No, because it was laughable. You can't turn back time, but now we're proving that was laughable with the weight of Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's why I said that Neil deGrasse Tyson and various other people who punt to heliocentric, they're just laughing at them.
There's a point I want. Is there a reason that he's using Santa Claus and not gold?
Probably because he can't.
So if you weigh Santa,
or the gold industry has. If there's any effect there, the gold industry knows what causes it.
Whereas Santa's weight loss or gain, nobody's got an idea.
Claus
no
on
one
the
can
North Pole,
validate
that is his authentic Earth weight.
Oh, sweet.
Okay.
Which is only 322 pounds.
It's all them cookies and milk he eats every
That's it,
time.
man.
Actually, he's skinny as a rail during the summer.
Yes.
Like I say, they're just laughing at you for gobbling down this bollocks that they're feeding you.
As my 7-year-old told me this year, Santa Claus can't exist. I went, really? Why not? She said, nobody could eat all those cookies without becoming a diabetic.
Oh, well, we don't know whether he's a diabetic.
Yeah, Santa's not real. Like your rotation's not real.
Plus, it'd be a fun sort of sci-fi film if he gets thin over the summer,
So why are we talking about Santa Claus? Are we moving away from the centrifugal forces throwing you off roundabouts that have got walls above them or buckets of water that are stopping water from flying out because there's a wall preventing it? How is this in any way been juxtaposed or demonstrated by way of the Epphos effect that he hasn't labelled when he says that you weigh more at different points on a rotating Earth that has a net force of 0? None of this is proven. This is all bollocks. Now we're talking about Santa's weight loss scheme.
On the sleigh, and he's skinny on the sleigh, but every stop he makes, he gets a little fatter. And then the reindeer say, "We can't do it. We got to land this ship.
I'm done." That's pretty.
Yeah, we're not amused.
or he gets stuck in the chimney, right? At some point, you're not fitting down the chimney. That's all I'm saying.
That's true.
So you can ask the question: at what speed must Earth rotate?
The question I would ask is, how is he getting down the chimney with all the centrifugal force? Shouldn't he be thrown directly away from the chimney within his rhetoric?
So that the centrifugal force exactly balances the gravitational weight that you'd otherwise have. You might ask,
why should it have it? Because you've said so. Wait. Why? Why is it that we're being asserted that somehow we've got this accelerated force, 9.8 meters per second, 107 years out of date? What's going on? Can anybody explain this? Why is he even saying this? Doesn't this go against his bending space-time rhetoric?
Yeah, completely.
Part of it, like I said, is abandoning Einsteinian. He has to go to Newtonian to have this argument, this countering of forces. Yeah, he has to abandon Einstein to have this argument, this claim.
ask that question.
I just did.
Sorry, multiple ads.
You right now.
So if you spin Earth faster and faster and faster,
right,
you weigh less and less and less and less.
We're not spinning. You haven't demonstrated that we're spinning. You haven't demonstrated this is an effect.
So this Chuck, 190 pounds, 185, 180, 170, 150, 100, 50. There's a point where you will weigh 0.
Isn't this what they had to claim for the moon landing also? They had to revert to they had to throw Einsteinian rhetorics away in order to assert their differential in weight on the moon after travelling via a second law of thermodynamics violation. I'm sure it's Brian that normally covers this.
Sorry, Nathan, what did you say?
You're saying you get less and less weight, and one of your arguments is to point out that they have to revert to the old-fashioned 107-year out-of-date Newtonian rhetoric of gravity when describing what happened on the moon, according to their bullshit story of travelling through a sky vacuum. That's what he's describing now. The Earth spinning faster and faster and faster, and changing the gravitational effect that you'd have on you until you reached 0. That's what he's describing, right?
Yeah, if you believe in the moon landings, then you deny Einstein's general relativity. That's all there is to it. They can't coexist. Because a force of gravity, and QE will support this, a force of gravity involves instantaneous action at a distance. So there is no way it's an instant thing, right? So when they're showing the claimed astronauts on the claimed moon, they're jumping around at only 1/6 of the weight they have on Earth. That's the claim. But that completely goes against all of general relativity, where weight is not part of it, and there is no action, instantaneous action between two masses. That doesn't exist. There's only accounting for one mass, not two masses at a time, one mass. There is no attraction between masses, and it's all capped off by this claimed two-way speed of light calculation. Nothing can move faster than the two-way speed of light calculation within Einstein's relativity. For mass attracting mass, it's instantaneous. So there's no cap of not only is there no attraction between masses or weight involved in Einstein's general relativity, but there's also that capping of with the two-way speed of light calculation, which means nothing can happen faster than that. So even gravitational waves within his general relativity don't move faster than the two-way speed of light calculation through their universe. So there's no way to have mass attracting mass. So if you believe in general relativity, you deny the moon landings. If you believe in the moon landings, you deny Einstein. That's basically the best side of it.
And you'll just hover over the equator, standing there. Do you know what speed that is? I'll tell you.
Okay.
If Earth rotates once every hour and a half.
Damn.
Okay. Now that's
Go on. And maybe that was his co-host interrupting.
fast, but think about it. Think about it, okay? If we rotate once every hour and a half, and you're just floating there above the Earth, you are actually in orbit around the Earth.
Orbits is just another begging the question fallacy. Show me an orbit.
That's right.
Okay? Do you know how long it takes the space station to make one orbit around the Earth?
It doesn't. The space station, number one, is just a light in the sky that we observe from the ground. Number two, to have it be in perpetual falling motion, i.e. in orbital motion, you'd have to have a sphere Earth for it to orbit around. You haven't. You haven't got a physical geometric limitation to your view at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet to assert that there's a curved edge for it to fall around in a spherical way or in a circle. So no, there are no orbits. We've debunked all of them.
Just see where this claim goes, Nathan, if he's going to invoke his secondary reference frame, because he's now about to counteract the magic of gravity, which is generating this non-secondary reference frame. But he's about to go into one, because he's about to claim he's got an orbit. So where's he getting this energy for the orbit? But is he going to just be levitating in a magic moving atmosphere again, denying his Coriolis effect?
I think that's probably the reason he sped the Earth up to one rotation every hour and a half, just so it's less clear that that isn't the case. Because now he's not describing it in line with 24-hour of rotation or a single rotation in 24 hours. He's describing it at an hour and a half. I think that's why he's done it. We'll see.
Let me guess.
An hour and a half.
90 minutes.
Make him weightless.
That's what he's saying, yeah.
Yeah, in terms of the presupposed nonsense.
Yeah, and he's saying that's an orbit.
You didn't let me guess.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Here we go. Wait. Watch this. 90 minutes.
So of course, but he's asking him for the speed, is he not? Which is something like 16,000 miles an hour or something, right? That's the speed he's asking for.
17,500.
There you go.
Of course, it's a couple hundred miles up, so it's a little longer, but basically it's in the 90-minute zone. Okay, Earth's surface up to what we call low Earth orbit, LEO.
Low Earth orbit, what we call low Earth orbit. There's no such thing. Nothing's falling around a sphere Earth. We haven't got sphere Earth to fall around.
Low Earth orbit. It all happens in about 90 minutes. So you can recover what happens in orbit by spinning the Earth so fast that everyone on the equator weighs zero.
Well, a bit like Superman spinning. Man, it's why he planted that subliminal image of Superman spinning the world. That's why he did it.
And that happens.
See, this is skill. This is skill in terms of magicianry, right? He's got to plant that seed early on. So when you've suspended disbelief about Superman, you can now suspend disbelief about it traveling at a 90-minute rotation.
Right when we complete one rotation in basically an hour. But I think if you do the math, it's 88 minutes. But
wow,
good for these purposes. So that's just kind of a fun fact about the rotation of the Earth, I think.
That is
what was the fun fact? That if you sped it up, you'd get an orbital motion? That's your fun fact? Well, load of bollocks. We haven't got orbits. We need a sphere Earth to fall around. You need a sphere Earth with a radius value to assert that it's spinning in the first place. You need two reference frames, like you claim with the ball, that you've completely contradicted in this video. None of this works. We've debunked every aspect of it.
Wasn't that the flux capacitor at 88 miles per hour? Now it's 88 minutes.
Yeah, it's a different thing.
Really cool. I mean, so you could actually, that's like super low Earth orbit.
Yes. And you don't have to worry about ducking the trees because everybody with you is also orbiting.
Floating.
Exactly. Is also floating. That's right. Cool. I left out something. Earth is slightly flattened at the poles and slightly
Sorry, Adam, go ahead.
Just on this point, whilst I'm floating above the Earth orbiting, what's importing a centrifugal force to keep me floating?
Oh, there isn't one. It's only apparent
chicanery,
according to him.
Yeah?
It's only
I'm either
apparent.
getting flown off and bouncing back down to the ground until I hit the ground and then getting flown off again. Nothing's keeping me, keeping anything in equilibrium. It's a force created, yeah, to counteract the gravity. As soon as I'm not in contact with this rotating non-inertial reference frame, then I no longer get the benefit of the counteracting of gravity.
May I ask, was he claiming that when you jump up in the air and land back on the ground, you're actually orbiting while you're up in the air? Is this what his claim's coming out to?
No, the Earth's rotating at such a rate that your weight in weight equals m times g has been counteracted by the centrifugal force at the equator, so that the two are equal. So you have no weight per se. So you're hovering above the ground, apparently. In this
Well, yeah, but he said something about if something's hovering, it's orbiting.
Well, yes. That therefore constitute. Look, that was the point I asked about reference frames. Does that now constitute an orbit?
No. I mean, what he's saying is, at the beginning of this discussion, he described how you're on a graviton, or whatever you call it, at the fairground, being forced out against the outside, right? And that is described as the force that will throw you off at a tangent being greater the faster you go. Yeah? Now he's saying, the faster you go, the more likely you are to hover. That's what he's saying.
Yeah, he had to change it because now you're on the outside. See, that worked out when you were talking about you're inside of a ride that's spinning around. So therefore, when you take the floor away, you stick to the wall. Now he's okey doke that you're outside of this ride, and now when you're outside of it, you step off it, you're just gonna hover.
As long as you're going super fast.
That is.
No tangent to throw you off by, according to his description earlier. Now you go fast enough, you fucking fly like Superman.
Slightly wider at the equator. We might have said this on another explainer.
Right.
So we're oblate, which sort of hamburger shaped, rather than prolate, which would be hot dog shaped, stretched pole to pole. We're flattened at the equator. So
flattened at the equator. Where'd you get the equator? What is it? What was measured? How was it measured? Oh, it was measured off a flat plane. It's an angle measurement. It denotes the circle around Polaris. At the extremities, you would see it. That's what the equatorial plane is. You keep using this term and then saying that it's in relation to somehow being spherical with a slightly chubbier bottom to the bottom half of the hemisphere, you're going to assume? No, the entire description of your equator comes from a flat plane. So how are you going to take a measurement of a star with an angle from a flat plane and then say that somehow that's in relation to a sphere Earth? It isn't. Can't be.
Everyone on the equator is farther away from...
Worse than that, Nathan, the globe cannot be an oblate spheroid. If it was an oblate spheroid, the latitude and longitude grid could not be placed upon it, because that is based off of certain distances from the GP point of Polaris, which means that if it's an oblate spheroid, what would happen is the two longitude lines that leave, any two corresponding longitude lines that would leave the North Pole point of the latitude and longitude grid would never meet at the bottom of what they call the South Geographic Pole. It would never meet there. They couldn't meet and what would happen is all the distances between the latitude lines would all start becoming skewed as you approach the equator, and they will get more and more an accumulation of being skewed after the equator. So south of the equator, all those longitudinal distances, or the distances, between the longitude lines would be skewed more and more and more. So none of it would work. It could not work if it was an oblate spheroid. Their model has to be an exact sphere.
From the center of the Earth than people living on the poles, people and penguins living near the poles. If you're farther away from Earth's center, the force of gravity on you is less.
Gravity is not a force.
So already there...
You've just thrown Einstein under the bus.
weight is less just because Earth is bulbous at the equator relative to the poles. Then you throw in...
As shown by what? When was this demonstrated?
The rotation on top of it. Folks on the equator got it made in the shade.
Well, watch out, Atkins. There's a new diet coming.
It's a new keto diet.
It's a new keto diet, the super low Earth orbit diet.
Earth orbit diet.
The super low
Again,
Earth orbit.
diets are so that you lose mass.
Yeah, they're just laughing at their own nonsense at the moment.
Yes, not that you lose weight.
Oh, yeah,
All right,
that's
just
right.
to make that
I
clear.
keep forgetting that.
And Chuck, one last thing. I said Coriolis force was another sort of fictitious force. So air pockets going north from the equator overtake the land that they find themselves over because it was going sideways fast.
What the hell was that? Say that again.
One last thing. I said Coriolis force was another sort of fictitious force. So air pockets going north from the equator overtake the land that they find themselves over because it was going sideways faster than the new place it finds itself.
So 2 reference frames.
Oh my God. I was gonna say, he's just done himself. That means his football didn't work.
A moment ago, he's described the atmosphere and the air moving together so that you won't feel anything. Now he's describing the effects of 2 reference frames. So what, Earth and atmosphere separate from one another? Yeah, it's self-evident.
like
We've got wind.
It's a triple okie doke.
It's contradicting himself in his own video, in this video.
Okay, so it
The
overtakes
video I
it.
made recently, sorry, I made a video recently, I think it's my 3rd video back, and it's about an airplane flying directly from Heathrow, London, to Accra, Ghana, directly north to south, along the tube line. And what it would have to do within 6.5 hours to meet up at Accra, Ghana, based on their claim. And everyone in there, including commercial pilots, tried to tell me, there is no deviation, there is no deviation, there is no deviation. You don't have to deviate. You just get carried along. There's no deviation. You don't have to do anything. And here is Neil deGrasse Tyson asserting something completely opposing to what the commercial pilots were trying to claim to me.
Air
Well, things
pockets
like-
moving due south find themselves on land that's moving faster than they used to be. So what happens is, if you have a low pressure system, air from a...
Pressure? Where'd you get that? Low pressure? On a sphere Earth? How is that achieved? I want to know.
Need a container for that?
You're gonna need a
Go
container.
back on what Bryce said earlier. More support, Brian. This is Tyson describing differential with retained angular momentum. So he's actually making the claim that planes take off backwards. He's now gone to that side, if that's what he's saying with his air pockets and reference frames. He's claiming
He
differential.
also said a hamburger that's flat and round. He said the equator was flat and round. If you listened, he said they were. It was both.
No, I'm more pertinently, I think he's got Coriolis virus. He has. That's what he's describing now. The anti-flat earthers rhetoric.
Globiolis.
Yeah.
Above it ends up coming in behind it, and that creates a general circulation that is counterclockwise for all storms and nearly all tornadoes. Okay? There's some exceptions, but it requires extraordinary circumstances to counterbalance that.
How can a not actual force, that's an illusion of Coriolis effect, do anything to wind ever? Answer, it can't. It's an optical illusion.
I was hoping to hear how hurricanes 100% move in a straight line, but I guess he's not going to get to that in this video.
So, all storms in the northern hemisphere rotate.
I mean, what now? We're assuming spherical surfaces now. No reason why, no evidence to show it.
Counterclockwise. If you
counterclockwise is relative to your position.
Sped up Earth you increase the Coriolis forces.
There are no Coriolis forces to increase. It's a not actual deflection observed as you turn beneath things. So you're saying if you speed up Earth, you're going to speed up a not actual force? I'm afraid not.
He's a clown.
And then you have ferocious storms.
Why? Because they're not moving in the inertial reference frame as you turn beneath them in the non-inertial reference frame to cause them seem to drift. You think that's going to make them speed up? Stupid. Doesn't understand Coriolis effect. Suddenly he's got ignorance to Coriolis effect. Previously you knew that Coriolis effect would be non-inertial turning Earth turning under footballs to cause deflection. Now he's got this course crap.
Yeah,
Globiolus.
According. Sorry, go on, Tucker.
Sorry, Brian. I was just going to say, notice how he's not describing any of these storms as apparently rotating. He's describing them with actual rotation.
Right. So I call him Kosho. Let me say one. I never thought I'd see the day when I would call Neil deGrasse Tyson a heretic.
As what's happening on Jupiter. Okay.
What he's saying.
Jupiter's way bigger than Earth?
Yeah.
Is it? It's a tiny little dot in the sky. We had it up earlier. What do you mean it's bigger than Earth? The light in the sky is not even comparable to Earth. Earth's the ground beneath my feet. How are you comparing a dot in the sky to Earth and saying it's bigger than it? No, obviously not.
It's, 10 times across.
Where'd you get the scaling value to do this? You're scaling this with Kepler's third law of interplanetary motion and an assumption of R for Earth and Venus. That's why you're saying it's bigger. No, we've debunked every aspect of this maths. Definitely not.
Okay, you can fit like 10 Earths across the...
10 Earths? What? Earth radius that you've used to scale it? That's why you're describing it this way. No, you'll need Earth's radius for you to make this assertion based on the scale of the R value of Earth when superimposed on Venus to give you the size of Jupiter.
Width of Jupiter? Something like that? Maybe...
No, not something like that. Something you've assumed with an R value for Venus superimposed on it after assuming Earth's radius, which we've debunked. And then scaling it with Kepler's third law. You don't know how big Jupiter is. It certainly isn't bigger than Earth. It's a light in the sky.
8 Earths. And Jupiter rotates twice as fast as Earth does.
Does it? Says who?
Oh. There it is. So... Jupiter had the great red spot. Oh, the beautiful red spot. It is a storm. And it's been raised.
Oh, right. It's a storm. What, like high pressure gas? So it's a storm in a sky vacuum. Storms, high pressure gas, expand into whatever volume they've got, Mr. Tyson. Are you unaware of the second law of thermodynamics? No. What? Jupiter is definitely not a giant ball of gas with storms in a sky vacuum. Definitely not. It's a violation of natural law.
Well, he's back to claiming that rotating objects create storms. It's like what he's essentially stating that if I'm on a children's roundabout and I'm sitting down on it and someone spins me around, and then I look up and someone flies a drone straight over the top of that roundabout, and even though the drone is flying straight because I'm rotating, it appears to me that the drone is taking a curved path. That at that exact time, there should be a mini weather system start over the children's roundabout. That's what he's
aging for more than at least 300 years. Okay, so these are the consequences of.
That's a weatherman's. Never. I can't.
It's a weatherman's happy place. Yes.
I was gonna say yes.
The weatherman will always have a job on Jupiter.
That is
really. How do you know it's gas pressure? Given that you say that the surrounding black area, when you're looking at that light in the sky, is a 10 to the minus 17 Torr vacuum. How can you possibly say that it's gas to have weather, for weathermen to be happy there? Definitely not. It's a violation of natural law to assert it.
It's a weatherman's dream.
Definitely not, because it's not gas at high pressure in a sky vacuum. That's idiotic.
Like that, a 300-year storm.
Yeah.
No, definitely not, because that would be a high pressure gas in a sky vacuum, wouldn't it?
I'll never be fired. I got a lifetime job.
So Chuck, we got to call it quits there.
All right.
Always good to have you, man.
Always good to be here.
Okay,
I think the biggest trick of Coriolis is it doesn't matter whether you assume the Earth's turning with the atmosphere that you presuppose or if you assume they're spinning together, just as long as you assume they're spinning, that's all they need you to do.
Precisely.
Something.
Exactly. It doesn't matter if Earth turns underneath football, shortening flight times travelling west, or Earth and atmosphere spin together, violating the second law of thermodynamics and gas behaviour. It doesn't matter, because you're assuming it spins in both instances, so that's good enough. We're assuming it spins. What do you mean it doesn't work because flight times would be shortened? Oh, Earth and atmosphere spin together. Well, then there's no Coriolis effect. Yeah, that's because they're two reference frames spinning under the other. All right, well, that would shorten flight times. Yeah, because they're spinning together. But every time we okie doke from one to the other, we're still assuming it spins.
Well, I still maintain that he's claiming that a children's roundabout should be able to, you observing a ball appearing to drift when you're sitting on a children's roundabout rotating, then there should be a storm beginning at that point over that children's roundabout. Now, I know it seems ridiculous, but that's exactly what he's claiming.
Yeah, only if you spin it fast enough.
What's wrong with you, Brian? Don't you know there's children on Jupiter?
No, but that's what he's claiming. I know it's a joke, but that's what he's claiming. He's claiming that if you sit on a children's roundabout and someone spins you around, someone flies a drone in a straight line over the top of it, because the drone appears to take a curved path, that means that there's going to be a mini hurricane on that children's roundabout.
Wow.
That is his claim. I know it's stupid, but that's his claim.
How long is this nonsense going to go on? How long are people going to be duped by this nonsense?
Well, as long as he doesn't ever have to go into how Coriolis is simply an optical illusion as seen from the non-inertial reference frame, he doesn't have to. It'll go on forever and ever. Because like we said before, he could just say, they could just pull out whatever they want. It's either spinning separately, two reference frames, therefore we have Coriolis, and footballs can go into field goals due to the rotation of the Earth, or we have the air and the Earth moving together, right? They just pull out whichever one they want, whichever one they could use, and whichever one makes sense at the time to whoever they're speaking to. So therefore, they can go on forever.
It's an awesome magic trick when you think about it, because we see anti-flat earthers do it all the time.
Exactly.
So long as they apply the Simon Dan tactic, which is like, don't engage with flat earthers, they'll get away with it. But the moment they engage, they're going to get ripped apart by flat earthers, and that's why they ridicule it, because they can't engage. That's why they can't come in here anymore. They can't win.
Yeah, and you don't got a chuckling guy over there who sit there laughing at all the jokes, which are really cringe, to be honest. Heliocentric model jokes are cringe.
That's what I'm saying.
They
How
really
long
are.
are people going to get fooled by this? They're laughing in your face.
They're laughing at themselves.
And people that buy it.
No.
Well, no one gets a chance to. That is
Nathan?
very true. And I was sorry. Go on, Tent. Go on, Tent.
I have a very poor connection, so I'll again make it fast. Sorry, because you guys are popping in and out. Hopefully, this is getting through. Nathan asks, "Is there a video that he makes a mistake?" And I found this one to be the first one that we caught him on, and Nathan got it without me even alerting him to it, where he said the atmosphere moves with the Earth, and then Nathan spotted it and then talked about the football. So here's the first one that we officially could count that he made a mistake.
Did he though, or is it part of the magic trick?
Was it
Part of the
a
magic
mistake,
trick.
though?
That's
Was it
heresy.
really a
That's
mistake?
heresy.
Not a
Or did
mistake.
he actually,
Well,
because
I
how many?
think it was a mistake.
Because how many of these? Because he calls these videos explainer videos, right? How many explainer videos has he had on Coriolis? Because remember, you sat down. Oh, we got to talk more about the rotation, blah blah blah, right? So again, we've listened to a bunch of these, and if this is the first time that he's asserting that the atmosphere and the Earth are rotating together, maybe it's not a mistake. Maybe it's something that he's throwing in there now because, as an explainer, there are people, because we know there are people running around talking about this now, right? Like us, right? So maybe it's not a
But he
mistake.
did make a
Maybe
mistake.
it's very purposeful. My
But he
opinion.
did
anyway.
make a mistake. Sorry, Chuck, I thought you were finished when I stepped in there. He did make
Oh,
a
you're good.
mistake because he almost said the word feel when he was talking about not feeling when it
Yeah,
came
yeah.
to centrifugal force. And it's such force that we would
Yeah, that was
something,
good.
something, something. Yeah, that was funny. Kiwi, you should go back and listen to that.
No, you call him
Well,
on
Anthony's right.
that one, Brian, but he did make a mistake here.
He definitely went to say
I'm
feel.
gonna drop and rejoin.
Well, I ain't
Anthony's
saying
right. I
that
agree.
he may have messed up his words. He may have messed up his words, but I think as far as the magic trick of convincing the world that the Earth's spinning, I think he did the magic trick well.
I
Like
agree.
nobody at any point in time said the Earth is stationary.
Yeah.
No, I think he's just so arrogant at this point that he thinks he can say whatever. He can contradict, then say something else, contradict that. He's so arrogant at this point, he knows everybody's just going to buy it.
I'm
Well,
just gonna
guess
bring-
what? We ain't
just
buying it.
Just a little bit of
But not
clarity.
only-
Just
Sorry,
a
go
little
ahead.
bit of clarity. So, no, it's not a mistake. It's a contradiction within heliocentric rhetoric that we've identified many times before with anti-flat earthers. Well, now it seems that a mainstream priest is in line with the contradiction. Now, is it a mistake?
Yep.
Definitely not. It's part of the magic trick. Yeah, that's where I conceded to Brian early on. Brian saying, look, this is part of their magic trick. It's part of the heliocentric rhetoric. Within their contradiction of Coriolis effect, they have Earth and atmosphere moving together. It's Globiolus effect. The deflection he describes with the pockets of air. That's Globiolus. Well, okay, I conceded that halfway through because I was wrong. I never expected this. However, he's contradicting his assertions of Coriolis deflection, because if they're moving together, they're not deflecting. So it's a contradiction, but is it intentional? Not in regards to the contradiction. He may not even be aware of the contradiction, because when he's wrapping this up to explain away why we don't fly off Earth, he probably isn't thinking about his football example. Or if he is, it's just a contradiction. But he's absolutely intentional in terms of his motivation for convincing you that we spin with this explainer video. So it's not a mistake.
Yep.
Well, Nathan, it depends, because if the football was traveling north-south or south-north, then his calculation within his contradictory stance, his calculation may hold, if you understand. Now, he's still claiming a deviation, but if the football pitch or whatever, that field goal by Tom Brady was north to south or south to north, then maybe his calculations would actually fit within his rhetoric. I'm just saying.
No, on the
you weren't
contrary.
pointing that out.
No, any deflection is deflection. Any deflection is separate reference frames. If it's deflecting, it's not attached. In his description in this video, he described Earth and atmosphere being as one, so that you wouldn't notice any effect. So those two things are in stark contrast with one another. It's not that you can say, well,
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with that.
okay.
I'm not, sorry, I'm
With
just
his
wait 1
air
second, Adam.
pocket. Go on, one by.
My point is that I was trying to say to you, Nathan, don't go stating that he said this about the football because and he's contradicting this other thing. Yes, he is contradicting. It is contradictory to say that there's air pockets deviating north to south and one to south to north, and then claim that Earth and atmosphere rotate together. That's all a contradiction. But his football example may have been a north-south or south-north example, is my point. So you might try and grab him on something there, and he's actually within his own rhetoric from this video and his calculations, they will fit what he's claiming within this video.
I can't.
That's all I'm saying.
No, because the contradiction is also in this video. So in this video, he's simultaneously claimed that they move separately, like with the pockets of air, which would lead you to a conclusion that aircraft take off backwards. Well, either way, you've got separate reference frames, because there's going to be a deflection of sorts, therefore two reference frames. If they're moving together, that is a single reference frame. And in this video, he detailed both. So it was self-contained, which is good, because it means that we don't have to go back and cross-reference him to say, look, Erie is claiming two reference frames with the football, which he most certainly is.
Yeah, I'm not arguing against that. I know he's contradicting himself within the video. I'm only trying. I try to stop you from pointing out something to do with the football, and some smart ass coming back with some calculations to state that he's not contradicting what he says in this video, even though he's contradicting himself in the video.
Oh, I see what you're saying. No, I get that. No, that's fine, because that's the trap. No, I hope they do. No, look how his calculation works out, north-south, right?
Differential globiolis, I think, is the explanation now for the goal and this. So I just heard that as a perfect clarifier. He's fully on board with this differential difference, planes taking off at 400 miles an hour backwards, and that's fine. The bit you hang him to is what's doing this, because it's the same as the anti-flat earthers. What is it? Retention of tangential speed, angular momentum, perhaps? That's what I'd like to hear him say, how this cloud manages to maintain moving at 1,000 miles an hour and creates. Why is it maintaining that 1,000 miles an hour? That's the question. That's the bit they want you to look past, and it's
why is
that he's committed himself to now.
Why is unbonded gas?
Yeah.
Bonded to an assumed to be turning frame of reference to give you no effect to observe other than a differential I claim when there's no effect because they're moving together.
And why does it retain that, like say, bastardized word, angular momentum, retention of linear speed, whatever they're claiming it's doing, which we've showed. Why would gas maintain that? How does gas maintain going north at 1,000 miles an hour east, yeah, to keep its relative position other than it's traveling north the same? That's just beyond ridiculous to suggest a gas pocket would do that.
With that, I'm going to say another huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. And of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams. Hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member, and all that good stuff. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.